steps, are they your financial advice? Because you're
Yeah.
out here crushing it. I think I've probably said it on the podcast before, but I like watching what you're doing because you're working your ass off. And that
Oh,
makes me feel like, oh man, I gotta get to work, you know?
well, I'm not. I mean, I'm still just a very small fish compared to what's out there.
Yeah, but you're taking these
So,
steps. I mean, how many
yeah,
people are
I have
doing
a
that?
plan. I
Yeah.
have a vision.
Which is 90% of it, and most people don't have that.
Yeah,
They
I
just
guess.
start walking and they're like, well, I hope I find $1 million on the side
Well,
of the
there's a
road.
lot of misguidance because they don't teach you about
Hmm.
finance in school,
Yeah.
which is kind of why I wanted to come on to go over some of the stuff that they don't teach you about in
Yeah,
school.
please do.
I have so much. I even brought notes
I like that.
because
Coming prepared.
there's so much to discuss when it comes to finances. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, I want to go over credit. I want to go over, I got an offensive versus a defensive approach when it comes to finance and what the difference is. And then I've got understanding how our currency is fiat. I've got student loans. I've got how inflation works. I've got real estate versus stocks, depending on what you want to get into.
I want to talk
I
about
got.
it all. So start from the beginning with me, because when we last talked, which was over a year ago, which is crazy. I would not
Yeah.
have thought we're still in this where we are.
Yeah.
But you had just gotten your first rental, right? And it seems like now you're way more into it. I think you had a plan back then, and I think it started with the rentals. But now it seems like you're definitely
Yeah.
further along on that path.
Yeah, now I've got 2 rental properties, and I'm just
Congratulations.
planning on having an average of 1 per year
Mm-hmm.
until I turn
Oh, that's an
33.
awesome goal.
Yeah, so my first house I bought when I was 21. My second house I bought when I was 22. I just turned 23, and I'm thinking about buying a fourplex next.
Oh,
So that'll really set me ahead.
yeah.
And I'll explain why later, like once we really dive into it. But basically the first step is just getting your credit score. And unless you have tons of money, like you're one of those YouTube stars that we were talking about, and you just
Mm-hmm.
got tons of cash, then you don't need good credit technically if you just want to use your own cash. But for everybody else, the other 99% of people, getting a good credit score is the first step, because that's going to allow you to take out a loan in the first place, and then it's going to heavily impact the odds of what your interest rate is going to be, which is super important. The interest rate that you have on your loan, depending on how low or high it is, will be hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars in difference
Oh, wow.
because of the way that mortgage loans work. So, for example, like just using really simple numbers, let's say you go and you buy a $100,000 house, which is not very doable in California, but just it's an easy number. Let's say you have a $100,000 house, and like you've got great credit, it's above 750 at least, and you've got let's say the economy like it is right now, where interest rates have fallen to the lowest that they've been in a really long time. So what you can do is get a really low interest rate. And like for me, I refinanced my house at 2.2%. So if you get a 2.2% interest rate on a $100,000 house, you're still going to have to pay over $30,000 in interest. But if you make that 2.2% into 6% and you run the numbers, you're going to be having to pay more than the actual cost of the house. You are then going to have to pay $115,000 in interest just
Wow.
for having a 6% interest rate. So this is why it's so important that you get your credit score up, because it'll save you so much money, because that does impact the interest rate that you can qualify for. So we might be buying the same thing, but like if you've got bad credit, you're going to have to pay almost $80,000 more for the exact same thing. So that's really the first step, is getting your credit score up.
Yeah, I don't think people really, I know I didn't really understand, I mean, how those payments can really screw you over. Like interest is, you hear, oh, you're only going to pay like 4% interest, it's going to be fine, but that adds up.
Yeah.
Especially as your loan gets bigger and the amount you're taking out gets bigger, it can kind of screw you over a little
Right.
bit.
And like a lot of people don't understand how interest rates on houses work. There's an amortization schedule. So let's say your interest rate is 4%. you're going to be paying 4% on the principal left value in your house every year. So, and they're also front loaded. So basically, if you got a really high interest rate on a loan, you could be paying more in interest the first 15 years than principal down on your house. And
That's
the way it
crazy.
works is it's just like, you could have a $900 house payment, but then you're paying $800 in interest. And then it slowly goes down, but it's so important. I wish I had a whiteboard so that I could just like
I do
draw it
too. That
out
would
for
be
you.
nice. New
Because
addition to the studio.
yeah, because it definitely works like that. And then the other thing about credit is like people don't understand how to get a good credit score either. Most people think that it's just making your payments on time, right? But that is only 35% of what they actually grade your credit on. So if you are only making your payments on time, 35%, 35 out of 100, that's 35%, that's still an F, right? Because there's 4 other things that they grade you on. And most people don't know this, but your utilization is also super important. That's 30% of what they grade you on. So like for me, I've got a credit card limit of $4,000 right now. And so what I do and what I found works best for me is that I use like 10% and then I pay it off. So I don't use more than $400 because they count the utilization. If you were to use the whole $4,000, your credit score would be hit hard. So they look at that. And the way that, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of like social media algorithms. Like,
It feels kind of arbitrary, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, you really just have to know what the rules are in order to get a really good score. So those are the 2 main things. And then there's the average age of credit, which is why you'd never want to close out an account. Because if you close that, like I knew a girl who had a credit card for 7 years, and then she closed the account, and then all of that history just goes away, and her credit score was hit super hard. So once you open a credit card account, that's like a whole new line of credit. Never close it, because that'll hurt your average age. And then the other 2 things that they grade you on, which is only 10 and 15% of your credit, is 10% is your types of credit. So like
loan versus.
it's like how you have credit cards and then you've got home loans and then you've got auto loans. They like to see the variation, but it's only 10%. So I mean, everybody starts somewhere. When I first started out, I had to learn the hard way how to build credit, and I made all the wrong moves. And I basically took out a savings secured loan just so that I could build my credit because it's a different type of credit, but the interest rate was so high that I ended up just paying thousands of dollars just to build my credit.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you pull that down just a tad bit?
This?
Yeah, just pull it down slightly. There you go. Okay. What is a savings secured loan? I don't know what that is.
It's basically
Is that like a CD fund or?
So when I went to go buy my first vehicle, I didn't have that much money. I was starting out with I had like $10,000 in my bank account, and I wanted a decent truck. So I bought a Tacoma, and it was listed for, I think, $10,000, and I didn't want to just completely drain my savings because I had bills to pay and stuff. So what I did was I took out a savings secured loan. So I basically borrowed against myself through the bank. It has a really high interest rate, though. Like, I would definitely look into it a lot better than I did before I did that. But it was a way to get around an auto loan because I didn't have credit at the time. Savings secured is a lot easier of a loan to get if you're just starting out.
But that high interest comes from you betting on yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's through the bank. And yeah, it's basically like, oh, you had $10,000. Now technically you've got $20,000 in control because you got $10,000 still in your bank, and then you got a $10,000 loan on your truck, and you just got to pay it off as you go. And I think there's a rule, I can't remember because it was a few years ago, but it's like you can't have less than 75% of what that $10,000 initially was in your account.
Okay.
Something like that. So yeah, that was one of the first things I did to build my credit. But there's so many other better ways. Just get a credit card, pay it off, and don't use more than 10% of the limit. That's what I would
Yeah, the
recommend.
paying it off thing is important because if you just pay the minimum balance and let it carry over, that's what screws a lot of people up.
I definitely want to make a payment every week to
Hmm.
it. And then the last thing is hard inquiries. So every time someone checks your credit score, it goes down.
Which is like that happens when you open a new line of credit and stuff too, right? Don't
It's
they do a
kind of
hard
like when
inquiry?
you go to shop for a home loan
Hmm.
and you have a lender check your credit. It'll initially hurt your score by sometimes 10 points. Um, and then you have 45 days to shop around without it hurting your score again, as
Okay.
long as it's another home loan place. But yeah, that's how that works. But anyways, credit is probably one of the most boring subjects that we have to talk about. But it's
I
like
think it's fascinating.
it's
It's
where you
important.
start.
Yeah. Because if you don't have a line of credit, like you said, how are you going to buy a house or get a good deal on a loan or do any of these things that you would want to do to accumulate wealth?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have credit, then you can't take these next steps. And if you have okay credit but not great, you're going to end up paying thousands of dollars more for the exact same thing that somebody else next to you is going to be paying for but has a better credit score.
Hmm.
So that's why it's important. That's why you should learn it in school, but for some reason they don't. And I wish I could just go to high schools and like teach everything basic in one day. Just be like, hey, this is how credit score works. And because there's a lot of people that, there is that fact that you have to take on some self responsibility to learn on yourself by yourself. But most people don't realize that they really need a great credit score until they go in to get a loan and then they get denied. And I just don't like seeing that happen to people. Like, oh, okay, obviously they need to take out a loan for something, but they didn't know prior. So it'd just be better if we taught it in high school.
And
Or
how many
if,
people are talking about money, period?
yeah,
About
money is,
healthy saving habits and
yeah,
having an
right?
emergency fund and
Yeah.
it's not really talked about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to talk about it more.
You should. That's why
Do
I'm
you
telling you,
have
you
any
have to do.
questions about?
I'm full of questions. How did you get started down this? Did you start watching YouTube videos and that kind of caught your eye and sparked that interest, or it was just through starting with that loan against yourself and you're like, oh, okay, there's something else going on here. I got to dig a little deeper.
I think one of the first things was reading a book that really changed my whole mindset.
I think I know what book you're gonna
Rich
say.
Dad, Poor
Yep,
Dad.
I've got to read that. It's on my list. I just got to get to it.
It was the most influential book that I've ever read, I think. And I have an extra copy if you want one in
Yes.
my
Oh
truck.
my
I
God.
can give.
Yes.
Okay, my dog kind of chewed up the corners,
That's okay.
but it's still all there.
That's awesome.
And yeah, it's such a good book. I reread it all the time now, too, just to keep myself on track because there's like the book is essentially about this guy who has a rich dad and a poor dad to compare to. And one of them is highly educated, and the other one is dropped out of high school, I think. And he became a successful entrepreneur. And it's just like the two different routes that you can take, and how one of them became super successful through entrepreneurship. And then that kind of changes your whole mindset because when you grow up, you're told go to college and get a degree and then get a W 2 job. And this book kind of completely shatters that idea, which is why I recommend reading
I
it.
think I think changing that mindset is important because people, we're almost bred to believe now that you have to go to college, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to get this corporate job, and that's your career, and you got to dedicate 40 years of your life to that career, and then you can retire, and then you can enjoy life,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, if that's what you want, if you want to go down that path, I think
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to life,
Yeah.
and that's not a prerequisite to being successful. I think
Right.
people don't really get that yet. I think
Mm-hmm.
more are waking up to it because they
Yeah.
don't want to go down the corporate path.
Well, one of the biggest lies that we tell people is that they are nothing without a degree,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that is one of the biggest lies because what it does is it makes people feel worthless if they don't have a degree, and it puts them in debt to the government at the same time. And I'm not saying that everyone who's going to college is making a mistake. I think for a lot of people who want to become doctors or already have a path to success after they graduate of what they're going to do with their degree, I think that is amazing. I encourage that. If there's a return on the investment side of it, if you know that you're going to get a return, then that's great. But if you don't know if you're going to get that return, then don't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
If you want
that's
to be
the
an art major,
whole.
maybe
I mean,
hold off.
yeah. I mean, it just depends on what are you going to do with that degree. Are you sure that it's going to pay off in the end? Because there's good debt and there's bad debt. And if it's not going to make you more money in the end, then you might want to rethink taking out that loan or find a different route to at least, like, let's say you really want to go to college to study art or something. And you have limited choices. Like, you could get financial aid, you could get a scholarship. And if you don't apply for those, I mean, you could always join the military. There's other ways, I guess you could do it, or you could decide, okay, maybe not take out a student loan, wait till I'm 24 so that I can claim as an independent and then take out a smaller loan because I'll be able to qualify for more financial aid. There's like all these
I
different
didn't even know that was
factors.
a thing.
Yeah, like if you are 24 and you can claim as an independent at that point. I don't know why it's 24 because it should be 18.
They just picked that.
Right?
Yeah, right?
But yeah, if you're 24, you can claim as an independent. And if you've been living as a broke college student, you don't have any money. So you can qualify for more financial aid. If you come from a middle class or upper class family, you probably won't qualify for financial aid. So yeah, good things to know. There's a lot of research and a lot of things that people don't teach you.
They just
about
don't talk about it.
finance. Yeah.
I
And
mean,
it costs people thousands of dollars.
At least.
Yeah.
That's a low estimate. I mean, think of how many kids go to college, take out these massive loans, and then don't end up ever using that degree because they didn't like it.
Exactly.
And now you just have this piece of paper and $40,000 in debt that isn't good debt, and it's not debt you can get out of. I mean,
Exactly. That's
that
why
will follow you forever.
Yes, student loan debt is one of the worst types of debt because you cannot declare bankruptcy, unlike if you're a business owner, you can. It does. It hangs around the neck for the rest of your life. And if we just look at the statistics demographically between boomers, millennials, and I think it's Gen X in between, right? I wrote down
Is this
somewhere these
you
statistics.
posted something on Facebook that was like millennials only own like 4% of the wealth or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's true. So,
Which how great, like,
I mean,
what?
they're the most educated demographically out of all of these different, boomers, Gen X, Gen Z. Millennials are the most educated statistically.
And the poorest.
And they're the poorest. And I mean, it's really too bad because, 4% of all of the wealth is owned by millennials. And we have some millennials now that are 40 years old. At the same age, Gen Z had about 9% and boomers had about 21%.
How crazy is that?
Right. I know, it's really sad.
I mean, when you put it like that, that really breaks the fallacy of, oh, the more education you have, the more wealth you're going to accumulate. Like, it's just not true.
It really does, yeah. It really puts it into perspective. And then the other thing is how much debt we've got in student loan debt as a whole. I think, let me see here, $1.4 trillion in debt.
Oh my God.
So a lot of people are stuck in that student debt because it's the worst kind. You can't get out of it if you don't have a solid plan as to what you're going to do after college to make that money and then pay it back. You're screwed.
Yeah. And if all you're doing is working a minimum wage job, paying the minimum payment, you're gonna be lucky if you're 60 and finally have it paid off.
Right. Yeah, it's really too bad. I mean, really put an emphasis on, why you're going to college, what your plan is. Take that option or that choice so seriously because it could be one of the biggest choices you have to make in your life. Because you could be in debt the rest of your life because of it. It's a
racket.
Yeah.
It's a racket. I mean, we're taking these kids, they're fresh out of high school, that don't know up from down, and we're gonna let them sign away their life.
Isn't that just wrong though?
It feels wrong.
It's so easy to take out a student loan. It's so easy because it's the government is backing it. But then if you want to go and take out a loan to start a business, invest.
Oh, good luck.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You have to jump through so many hoops. Why is that?
It's crazy. I mean, we wouldn't let 18-year-olds go and take out a house loan.
Yeah.
The good luck finding a bank that, especially if you don't have a cosigner.
Yeah.
good luck.
It's hard.
But
I
you can
mean,
take out a
yeah,
$40,000 school loan.
yeah,
Sign
it's
right here.
yeah.
We've got you covered.
And it's weird that, they don't even check what you're studying, or they don't look at any kind of
They don't
plan
care.
you have. They don't care.
Mm-mm.
And so a lot of people end up getting screwed. And I mean, I feel really bad for them because I don't want people to end up in that situation. So, yeah, I think finances needs to be discussed more in high school before people go to college. Because they don't teach us in college either. I went to 3 years of college. And I didn't get my degree because I didn't want to take out a student loan. I got scholarships to go. I don't have any student debt, thankfully. But I mean, I definitely didn't use the things that I learned from college. No.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing is that is really more common, I think, than not.
Yeah.
I I mean, if there's anything you get out of college, it's more just the experience
Yeah, it
of
was an
being around people
experience.
your age. Like that's
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, if you can go down that path and not take out loans and you want to just kill 4 years and have fun, that's fantastic. But
It's kind of like training wheels for adulthood.
yeah,
Cuz
except you don't it's not even real adulthood. It's like childhood 2.0.
it is cuz I mean, imagine people who took out a loan to cover their housing, their schooling, and most of their food. They don't have to learn how to budget, pay bills yet because you don't have to pay back the loan until after you're done with college. So really, you graduate college without an understanding of financial literacy. And if you don't have a plan as to how you're going to make money after college, and that doesn't sort out, then
You're
I'm
screwed.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really sorry. But yeah, that's why I wish I could just reach out to high school students beforehand. Because there's a lot of people that study things in school that are kind of, well, very risky. Certain subjects. How are you going to make the money back studying certain things?
And even if you study something, even if you want to be a lawyer, I mean, that's great.
If you want to be a lawyer, you
But
don't
it's
even have to get a degree in California.
really, I did not
You
know
don't have
that.
to go to college. Don't have to do that. All you have to do is pass the bar test.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you really take a deep dive into things and carefully examine things before you go out and you spend money on things like that, there's ways around it that are a lot cheaper.
Or even just going to community college for a couple years.
Yeah.
I think is way better than going to
There's
a
a huge
university right
stigma around community college that I don't
which is so
understand.
weird.
Yeah, because, I
It
mean,
gets shit on, especially CR. I mean, if you're
yeah.
local and it's like, oh, you're going to CR, I
Yeah.
feel for you.
I mean, yeah, I went to CR for 2 out of the 3 years, and I went to Humboldt State for 1 year. And I will admit that, I didn't get a whole lot out of my education, but, that was my experience just with both the 4 year and the community college. Because what I found out later on in life is that I really enjoy entrepreneurship and that it comes with a lot more benefits. So if I would have focused on that right from the get go out of high school, I'd be doing even better than I am right now. So, I mean, it was okay though. But yeah, if I would have went to school for something like nursing or I don't know, engineering or something, like starting out small and saving money is really going to make you more successful later on in life.
Yeah, I mean, I did the whole college. I went to CR for 6 months and then
Mhm.
transferred and went to another JC and a couple other college. I bounced around a lot, but
Yeah.
it was like I wish I tried to drop out multiple times every year. I would talk to
Uh,
my parents and be like, I don't want to do
oh
this. And they're
no.
like, you're going to do this. And I was like, fuck.
uh,
But it's a different generation. And I think that's something I always collided with them with because for them, they
yeah.
never, my dad, they both went to a little bit of college, but
Mhm.
they didn't have the luxury of pursuing it.
Mhm.
Um, and in that generation, that's what it was, is if you wanted a good life and a happy life and to be able to afford things, you would go to college. But it's not like that anymore. I think,
Because you have to consider the return on investment.
yes. And the prices of schooling today are not in alignment with the quality of the education, especially compared to what you can find online.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Yeah. I mean, the most impactful education I got was from reading that book, I'll give you, and then watching certain podcasts, YouTube videos of people who are young that have already become multimillionaires just from real estate investing. Have you ever heard of Graham Stephan?
Oh, the name sounds familiar.
I would recommend watching his YouTube videos because he really breaks down all of the numbers. Same with Minority Mindset. That's also a really good YouTube channel to watch where I learned a lot about, what's a HELOC? You
I
know?
have no idea. I have no idea.
So, like, what is the Burr method? What is velocity of money and inflation? And, like, what's going on in the housing market? And, like, I get updated on stocks and all of that right there. So, I made a lot of money off the stock market. I made a lot of money off of real estate investing. My net worth is over $100,000 net right now.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
I'm got my own LLC and I'm planning on expanding. So, I mean, all of those things, I didn't have anybody to talk to. Like, my parents aren't investors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't teach me any of this stuff about real estate. I just learned it all on YouTube and reading books. Nothing from college, nothing from high school. What I did starting out was I'd go to the Eureka Library and I'd just check out random investing books. They've got some okay ones there, but it's free. And then you just like, oh, okay, that's how that works. Some of them are outdated though, so I'd definitely just stick to what I recommended you for saving time. But yeah, I mean,
But that's incredible. I mean, how many people, first off, just have the dedication to go and really do their own research?
I know it's really too bad that we train people to sit down and take lessons at school, but we don't teach people to self-educate or self-learn. And I think that it just comes down to your curiosity about trying to figure something out and breaking down a problem and creating a solution by breaking it down so that you can figure out, like, oh, there's a different way to do it if you do enough research. But then it comes into like putting in the work of doing research on the subject.
Which not a lot of people want to do.
Yeah. I just like learning about this stuff, I guess.
I'm telling you, you got to do a YouTube channel.
I know, I
You
want to.
have to. I think that because I mean, you're on this path, right? And I'm so excited to see where you go with this. But you could document that, and I think that would be a valuable resource, not only for other people to see, like, track your journey in a way, but also maybe inspire them to kind of start down their own path with
Yeah.
financial freedom. Because that's what we all want, right?
Yeah.
That's the dream, is to not have to go to work.
Yeah. I mean, so right now with my rental properties, I have $500 cash flowing off of one and $550 cash flowing off the other one. So I've got about $1,050 passive income that I've got coming in. And if I just do that repeatedly, let's say I just buy one house, or let's say I just be really conservative and I just buy one house every 2 years and I just got 6 houses in the next 12 years, right? The numbers would break down to, let's see, let me see here. I think I wrote down this example somewhere too. Because if you just did one house every other year and rented it out, your return would be like, what, $3,000 net every month, I think? And that's net after paying mortgages, after paying rental property management companies. Let me see. But yeah, I mean, and then imagine if you just invested into apartment buildings, like what I'm trying to do with investing into a fourplex or investing into multi-unit apartment buildings, then your return is even greater.
Yeah.
If you make a really good income and you got some money to save and invest, then, and if you were really serious about retiring early, you could probably retire in 2 to 5 years if you're really aggressive about it. Because you just have to save money, maybe find a partnership, and then invest in a really large apartment building. But yeah.
Do you think it's, because this is my interpretation from my uneducated view of just looking around, it seems like the biggest thing holding people back is really just their spending habits.
Yeah, I mean, there is some people who don't have the self-control to save because there's really three parts to this. It's earning money. You have to have a good job. And for me, that was one of the hardest parts was just earning a substantial income so that I had something left over to save.
Mm-hmm.
And then being really frugal about spending. Like when I was first starting out, and still, I only eat one meal a day. It saves me
Really?
money.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really frugal. Everything that I do, all the vacations that I've been on, have all been done for free, and I just don't like spending money. I wear hand-me-down clothes. I don't like flaunt it. I work a lot, so it makes it really easy to save also. Um, but that can really be a drawback because you can make $100,000 a year, and your net worth could be $0 if you're spending $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely part two is once you make the money, you got to save it. You got to know how to save money. But if you're only saving, you're not going to get very far either because inflation is the silent killer. And every year that you've got money sitting in your bank account, the interest rates go up and then your money value in your bank account goes down. So, I mean, that's why you got to learn how to multiply it at the same time. And to multiply money, you have to invest it in either stocks or real estate, or some people invest in gold and stuff like that.
The
But yeah,
one meal a day
those are the.
is crazy. That's some serious. I mean, crazy in a good way because
I
that's
mean, there's
well,
dedication.
yeah.
Dedication to saving and like, the things that are really, the hardest is just missing out on family and friend time. When I got really serious about making money and investing, I was working 7 days a week, 60 to 70 hours a week. And so I had no time to hang out with friends, to show up to family events, holidays. I was always working. And that was the hardest for me. But I knew that if I did this for 2 years and if I hustled really hard, then I'd have enough money to save to invest so that I could afford to. I mean, I could retire at like 33 if I wanted to, if I just stay on track. And then I'm retired at 33 and I can do whatever I want, but there's the sacrifice of doing that.
It's that delayed
Yeah,
gratification.
delayed.
That's what it
Yeah.
really is that
Self-discipline to do that.
recognizing that to get where you want to be,
Mhm.
you've gotta make some sacrifices.
Yeah. And a lot of people already have a shutdown mindset of like, well, everyone who has that lifestyle is just born rich or this and that.
I
But
don't like
if
that.
you really look into it, most millionaires are self-made by sacrificing in the beginning, early on investing. And I already know I'm probably going to be a millionaire if everything goes right. If I live to be older, like
Fingers crossed,
if I
knock
don't
on
get
wood.
get cancer or anything, like if I live to become older, I already know I'll be wealthy.
That's got to be a crazy feeling saying that.
Yeah. Well, I already have the numbers worked out in my head.
Wow. So you have a rock solid like this isn't just willy nilly. I'm just gonna do this. Maybe I'll branch over here and do this. You have a solid plan of I'm at point A, get to point B, point C, and then just keep taking those steps.
Yeah. I mean, I won't give up until it happens.
That is fantastic. This is why people like you are so important in having these people in your life because that's a motivator for people.
Yeah.
Like when you see someone working hard, it makes you want to work hard because you realize, oh yeah, there's more work to be done. And I think that's a powerful thing.
Take accountability. That's it. I mean, never quit. Just
Yeah.
I've made a lot of mistakes. So
That's part of life.
I mean,
That's part of life.
I've had so many home offers rejected, and you just got to keep trying.
Was it hard trying to get that first
The first
property?
one's the hardest.
Yeah.
First one's definitely the hardest.
Especially so young. I mean, they were probably like,
Yeah, I feel like I got turned away just based
just
off
off
of
the
my
age.
age. Yeah, because I had good credit. I had money saved up for down payment. I had a job that was paying pretty good. So, and I didn't have any debt. I didn't have any student loan debt or even auto debt. I didn't have any of that. So I was set up to invest, and I still had a difficult time in buying a house because I didn't have a cosigner. So it was very difficult. Yeah. I had to go to for my first house, I think I went to 7 lenders and
Wow.
one of them said yes, and then for my second house, I probably went through 10 or 15
Oh, more the
before.
second
Yeah.
time. Wow.
I had more the second time because I was investing out of state, and the house that I was buying was such a low loan amount. See, because I wanted to set myself up in the most stable way that I could, because right now I'm paying 2 mortgage payments. If if both of them were unoccupied, then I still want to be able to make the payments myself, just
Mm.
because I'm being really conservative and frugal with it. So if both of them are vacant, I still want to be able to come up with the money to pay both mortgages. And so for my second house, I wanted to make sure that my mortgage payment was low. So I saved $20,000 to put a 20% down payment, and the house that I bought was only $54,000. So that makes my mortgage payment less than my truck payment. It's like $320 a month for the house, my second house. But the problem was to get a loan for that. It's such a low loan number that most people aren't going to make enough money for it to be worth it. At least that's what they told me.
That's crazy. I
They're
would have
like,
thought they would have jumped on it.
yeah, they're like, oh well, we're not going to be making very much money off of it, and there's a lot of paperwork involved, so we just don't do loans under
What?
$50,000 or something. So I had to go to like 15 different people to find someone that would even take on the loan for that house.
That's crazy.
Which that was kind of me taking a defensive move with real estate, was just like me wanting to be able to make sure that, for my first 2 houses, I'm going to be okay. Because I could have taken out a much larger loan and bought in a much more expensive house. And then I would have had more control over more assets, but I was just kind of playing it safe
Where
because
did you buy the house
I
at?
don't have anybody to fall back on.
Which is important. That's a great. I mean, it's better to not spread yourself too thin, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know, especially nowadays, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, that house that I found was a really good deal. And the house that I bought the first time was a really good deal also, which is where a lot of my equity comes from. And I bought the second house in the Midwest, right on the 4 corners of like Missouri, Illinois, Arkansas, Kentucky. So it's only about an hour drive to each state.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Which I found out about through working for the airlines. So, looking for opportunities, I was getting sent to different places like in Chicago, and I met a coworker there who was really bragging about where he was from, and I was like, "Oh, like how much do houses there cost?" And it was like, "Oh, $50,000, $60,000." I was like, "What? How much do they rent?"
Houses can be that cheap?
Like,
What?
yeah, I was like, "How much do they rent for? How much do you pay in rent?" He's like, "Oh, typically $1,000 or so." I'm like,
Light
I
bulb.
was just doing the numbers in my head, like, you mean that some people there are making like $700 a month off of real estate over there and having such a low risk because their loan isn't that big? And then I was like, okay, I'm investing there.
Did you do any? Did you like do any diligence before doing that? Like check, okay, these are the values of neighboring houses. This is the standard rent rate. This is a pretty good area over here. This is where I want to kind of focus.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I failed pretty hard. I flew out there. I flew out there and I did some house hunting and I put in a couple offers, but then the loans fell through. And so it just wasn't meant to be. I ended up buying my house in California. But then 2 years later, I had another $20,000 saved at that point. Or maybe it was a year. I think it was about a year. But about a year later, I was looking online and I just bought a house online without even going and looking at it in person.
Whoa.
And I hired subcontractors for my second house. I had a really thorough property inspection first off done. That way I knew,
Before buying it.
yeah, that way I knew all the problems with it, which worst case scenario, I'd be out like $600, but I'd at least know if this is a good or bad deal.
Yeah.
And then I ended up like, okay, the problems aren't too bad. Just needs a little bit of work. I could probably do in a week. So I ended up then finding lending and a real estate agent and just putting in the offer all online. all through connections. I had my friend that lives over there drive past the house, make sure it was in a good area. So yeah, I was took on a risk there just by doing that, but I ended up closing on the house, and then I flew out there and did about a week's worth of work. um, the basement needed to be finished, and just some yard work and painting and some safety things that needed to be put in so that I could get it rented. And then I had already spoken with different property management companies the first time I was there about a year and a half ago. So I had already made a lot of connections there.
Which
Like
is
your
good.
your
Having that is,
networking is your net worth. I've
yeah.
heard that a lot. But yeah, I have a good network there. So I'll probably invest there again.
Yeah, I mean, the price sounds right.
And then the cool thing is that whole trip out there, tax write off. Everything that I did to the house was a tax write off. Um, so I'll get all that money back in the end.
That is
Even
insane.
your food,
Is a
tax write
write-off.
off. Yeah.
See, how many people, myself included again, actually understand taxes? Because I'm over here like, oh shit, you can write all that off? God
So
damn.
the funny thing is, like, there's a lot of millennials that are now making maybe $100,000 a year. A six-figure income for a millennial is pretty good, right? Demographically, like statistically looking at them. But I just look at that and I'm like, well, if you're making $100,000 as a W-2 income earner, which means you're an employee, then you're having to pay 30 to 40% in taxes in California. So your take-home net is 69,000.
Is
So
it really
yeah,
that high? Wow.
if you're
California's so crazy.
yeah, we've got the highest taxes. But if you are a business owner, you can write all that off. Everything is, I mean, just this last year, they made food a tax write off for business owners. Any labor cost, material cost, travel expense, advertising, it's all a tax write off.
So do you work with like a financial planner, or do you have a like an accountant that you run these ideas through, or you
I
found this all
wish.
out
I,
on your own? That is
yeah, I just
crazy.
did the research on my own. But I wish that I had some friends that were like
Connected,
tax
like, yeah, right? You could be
professionals.
like, hey, can you help me out here?
That way I can know, like, oh, I didn't know that was a tax write off too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's, I mean, it's more impressive that you've succeeded like this really on your own. I mean, how many people have a support network that still are just blowing money?
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you other than I just stay focused on
I
my
think
own
that's it. I
path.
think it's that discipline. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that's lacking today.
Well, they say that wealth ends up it's like 3 generations.
Yes. Yeah,
Like the
I've heard
first
that.
generation earns it, the second one spends it all, the third one's poor again. It's like an old Chinese proverb or something. But I think that's true. My parents were definitely not well off. Um, and I saw my parents struggle a lot with finances, and that kind of shaped me in my view of finances. And then I've just decided like, hey, I don't want to be like that. I want to have more. I traveling and stuff gave me a different outlook on life too, and just how much ability we have to succeed in the US compared to other countries, and just how I really need to capitalize on that. Um so yeah, I think that if you're born here, you're fortunate just to have the opportunities,
I agree.
and you just have to do your own research to take advantage of them.
That's the biggest thing is all that information is out there. Whether it's in book form,
Mhm.
YouTube videos, podcasts, the information is out there.
Yeah.
Like if you even have the slightest desire to learn, that can be satiated in any medium you want.
Yeah.
However you learn best, you can find it and it'll make a difference if you stick
Mhm.
with it.
Yeah.
You just have to you just got to take that first step.
Yeah. And I mean, now that I have more time, now that I'm not going to college and I'm just working, I actually have more time so that I can focus on learning things that are actually of interest to me. And it's so funny because when I like really focus on self learning, it's like, oh, I'm genuinely wanting to know what the answers are. And then it sticks in my mind better. And it just works better for me if I'm just like, oh, okay, this is how taxes work. This is what, like a HELOC, going back to that, my strategy is using what they call a BRRRR method, which is buy, renovate, refinance, repeat. And the refinance part is using a HELOC loan. So what you do is like, with my first house, I bought it, I refinanced it. It's now worth a lot more because of the housing prices booming during COVID and the renovation that I did to it, and just the initial equity that I had in my house from getting it on a deal also. Those are like the main three components when finding a deal, which I'll go over next, like how to find a good deal.
Yeah, please do.
But the refinance part is like, okay, I've probably got about $88,000 in equity in my first house. And what I could do is take out a HELOC loan or a HELOC line of credit. And what that is basically like you have access to the equity in your house without having to sell it. So you can go to the bank, you can say, hey, I've got, this appraisal came in, I've got about $88,000 of equity in this house, and they will let you borrow against yourself up to 75%.
So almost like a second mortgage on your house.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And then you can use that to buy more properties. It's good debt, it's leverage.
Yeah, it's not like student loan debt. This is something you can actually use.
Yeah. And so, like, going back to how mortgage loans work also is if you were to break down, like, okay, they charge you the interest based off of the principal that you have left on your mortgage, right? So if you paid more towards principal in the beginning, wouldn't that just mean that you'd save money in interest? Which is true. Like, have you ever heard someone say that they want you to pay off your house early by putting more money into it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a very defensive approach that you could do. You could easily pay off your house in 15 years if you wanted to and save like tons of money on interest. I think I wrote down an example I want to go over too, because I think that this is super interesting with just being an offensive or defensive approach to finances. So let's say you buy a $200,000 house. It's like how much my house was basically. If I paid it off early in 13 years, I'd save $40,000 in interest, and I'd pay it off in 12 years, 13 years, something like that. So I'd still have to pay $27,000 in interest, but that's a lot less than if I paid it off in 30 years. So, I mean, I could save $40,000, pay it off early. That's the defensive approach, and then not have a mortgage payment after that. Or the offensive approach, which is what I'm doing, which is paying it off in 30 years. I'm going to have to pay, let's see, about $68,000 in interest over the course of 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
You might be like, oh, why are you doing that? You're going to have to pay more in interest. Well, because in order for me to pay it off early, like in the first scenario, I'd have to put an extra $700 into it every month. But what I could do with that $700 a month, if I was investing it into more real estate, I could have 6 to 12 houses. And then the profit that I have off of all of those different properties is much greater. I mean, being frugal, like if I just had 6 houses, I would have about $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year, and then 6 properties. And then once those are all paid off, that's 100% cash flow. So it's like, oh, either pay it off early and pay less interest, or set yourself up to now you've got, $36,000 to $60,000 a year in income that you don't have to worry about. It's like 40 or 60 for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's something that I've been told in the past, like, oh, you should pay it off early. Like, I think my dad told me that. He's like, you should pay it off early. And then I ran the numbers and I was just like, actually, that doesn't make sense for me because I know I'm going to invest it.
Mm-hmm.
I have the self-discipline to not, to get that check and not be like, oh, I want
I gotta go buy those new toys. Yeah, like the new Apple Watch.
I gotta get that motorcycle even though I want one. Like, no, like you have to save that and then you can have so much more later on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why I'm super, super on the offensive approach. But, defensive is okay too.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's
At least there's
working.
some benefit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I see other people that have like a crazy amount of real estate, and it's so inspiring just watching their videos. Being like, "Oh wow, they own RV parks. That's super cool. They make so much money off of that and it's so
Low
smart."
overhead.
Yeah, I'm just like, "Wow, should do that." And then anytime that I travel, I rent out my house on Airbnb, so I make a little bit more money on top of that. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, so
So you are, I mean, you're hitting this thing from all angles.
yeah,
Are you still in the stock market at all, or do you have most
yeah,
of your
yeah.
cash is tied up in real estate?
Um, so I over the COVID pandemic, when I was saving money for another down payment, I think stocks are good for short term gain.
Mm-hmm.
Just in my personal experience, because if you're going to go long term, might as well do real estate. It's so many more benefits to
Yeah.
long term investing in real estate. But for short term stocks, with the opportunities that I saw during the COVID pandemic, investing in tech, I invested a lot into Tesla and a lot into Apple. And I think I had like Facebook, Snapchat, Netflix, Disney, and then I invested a bunch of money. Most of my portfolio was in Tesla though. And then I pulled out of almost everything when Tesla started to drop. And then I bought my house using that. So I made like $6,000 just off of the stock market in a year because I had just invested it all into the stock market. And that is in itself kind of risky, but I also did a lot of research into Tesla. And yeah, I mean that helped me even more fast track into saving money.
And it was almost the perfect time because these stable companies were so low in the
Yeah.
pandemic because nobody knew what was going to happen, and it worked out that it wasn't anything so serious that people were dying in the streets or anything. So those stocks bounced right back.
Yeah, staying updated on what's going on with the market currently is also very important with finances. That's why I watch videos almost every day, getting updates
On the stock market?
on the stock market and just on like even vehicle prices. When I bought my truck, it was like at the lowest point at the very start of the COVID pandemic
Yeah, now
when
they're
nobody wanted to
crazy.
buy. And then I was like, okay, well, this is the right time to buy because nobody's out running around. So I bought my truck at that point. I got it on a really good deal. And now it's like people offered to buy my truck from the car dealerships. And they're like, we can't get it. Now they have super low inventory because the whole world was shut down, that they weren't producing as many goods. So a lot of it just comes down to like looking at what's going on in the market too.
Yeah, timing it is
Yeah,
very
I mean,
beneficial.
yeah, and there's some things that you just can't predict.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, yeah, I think I just have I don't know, like I logically it just makes sense to buy when things are low and sell when things are high. That's just
People struggle with that though.
yeah, they
Especially if they
struggle.
start especially in the stock market and if things start dropping, people freak out.
I
They
made
see
that
that number.
mistake the first time. I bought into Bitcoin. I think it like in 2017. I bought into
Oh wow.
Bitcoin, and it started to drop, and I sold. And then I learned later on, obviously look at how Bitcoin's doing now, even though it's been super volatile the past few months. Um, but yeah, you just want to hold it.
Mm-hmm.
Only invest in the stock market if you're willing to hold it for a while
Yeah.
until it bounces back up, because it's such it fluctuates so much. Unlike real estate, the stock market fluctuates a lot. That's why I don't like it as much as
And
real
you got to be
estate.
careful because then you start checking it like
Yeah.
daily or hourly, and you see it
Yeah.
start pinging all over the place, and it gets a little uncomfortable, and you're
I
like,
just had
oh.
it like monitored on my phone through like one
Mm-hmm.
of those widget
Yeah,
things, and it's just the stock market. Yeah.
can drive you crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people who have invested in the stock market and are now self-made millionaires from that because they're really good at it. Um, yeah, but I think it's only for certain people. Only certain people that are willing to do a bunch of research into the companies
Yeah.
specifically. Because if you're not doing the research, then you're gambling.
Yeah,
You're
you don't want to take that risk, especially when you hear about these people that dumped in their life savings on like Dogecoin
mm-hmm.
and lost it all, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, come on.
Yeah. That's really too bad. I made a couple $100 off of Dogecoin. I bought it before it reached 1 cent.
Oh,
Because I
nice.
heard about it through a friend who was just like, oh, this is probably going to blow up. And I was watching a few different videos on it and like, oh, this is such a cool, like, silly thing. And I was like, oh, well, maybe it has the potential to be one of those hype stocks. So I just invested in it because it was a hype stock. And then I sold once it reached like 20 cents because I was just like, this
Mm,
doesn't have any backing to it at all
yeah.
other than that it's a.
Well, it's like that, and there was AMC and
Oh, yeah, and then
GameStop
GameStop and.
that they just blew. I mean, if you got in before, like
Yeah.
that's great. If you managed to sneak in before they hit that peak, it's the people that got in on the peak and then it
Yeah.
drops and you're like,
And it's so funny because people ask me about stocks too sometimes. And the night that Elon Musk went on Saturday Night Live,
yeah,
and they're like, should I buy Dogecoin? I'm like, no, I wouldn't if I were you. I think it's already at its peak
yeah,
and it's super risky. I mean, I was just like, there would be a 50% chance of it going up anymore and just crashing. So I wouldn't say that the odds are in your favor.
yeah.
And they're like, okay, I won't invest. And I was like, good, because it dropped significantly after
Thank God.
that.
Do you follow any of those cryptocurrencies? Do you?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin's a lot like gold.
Mm-hmm.
And to break down and understand Bitcoin, you really have to break down money in itself. Because if you take it back to like the very beginning of money, like you've got someone who's like maybe an apple farmer and someone who grows oranges. And it's like, let's just call them Tim and Tom. Well, Tim and Tom, they want to exchange, like, one of them needs an apple and the other one doesn't need an orange. So then what do? If they don't want to directly exchange, they use something equivalent to an IOU note, not like literally writing out, but like they use something to represent that. And so in the beginning, it was seashells, right? They used,
Was it really?
yeah, like Native Americans, a lot of native tribes used seashells as their currency, like an IOU note. And so they used that, and then they used that to trade and bargain. So that's how money originally started, and then that transferred or transitioned into gold. So you used to be able to take gold and exchange it through the Federal Reserve for cash until 1971 when President Nixon was in office. He took the dollar off the gold standard. And so the cool thing about gold is that there's only a limited amount of gold in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means that there's like something to base money off of. Well, since he took money off of the gold standard, ever since then, the US dollar has been a fiat currency, which means that the government has complete control over our currency and what it's worth because you can print an endless supply of money now. Unlike when it was transferred directly to gold, you could only print as much gold there was, you know? But now you can print so much more and the government has so much control. So Bitcoin is kind of like gold. There's a limited amount of Bitcoin. That is what makes it worth so much. There's never going to be more Bitcoin. But there's always going to be more cash. And just in the last year, during the COVID pandemic, I mean, what do you think really happened with our stimulus checks? What do you think that did to our economy? Well,
Oh, it's not good.
what that did is we started off with, I think it was $4 trillion, something like that. And then in less than 12 months, we had 6.7 trillion in circulation. We printed 40% of our entire currency in the last 12 months. So what that does is that causes high inflation. We don't see it yet because there's not been a velocity increase of 40%, but we could see that soon. And what that means is that the money in your bank account goes down because if you really explain inflation, like the most simple way to put it is like, let's say there's only 4 pencils in the entire world and there's only $4. Well, then each pencil's worth what? $1. But if there's 4 pencils and then the bank prints out 4 more dollars, now there's $8. How much is each pencil worth?
50 cents.
No, it'd be worth 2 because there's only 4 pencils.
My bad. I'm going backwards.
No, it's okay. So there's 4. Now there's $8. So each one is 2.
We'll just cut that part out.
No, it's important to understand how inflation works, though. Because now that we've got so much more money in a time where production actually slowed down, we had a peak of unemployment at 15% during the COVID pandemic while we were printing more money. So that kind of goes into like, okay, now there's less pencils and there's more money, which means that every pencil is now worth more money. That's the most simple way to explain it when it comes to all of the things are going to continue to rise in value. Like, everything's going to be more expensive.
Do you think we're heading towards a crash? I asked that question to everyone that...
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's
crazy, right? I'm kind of just sitting back watching and I'm like, okay, nobody really worked during the pandemic. Things are getting more expensive and yet people are spending more.
Mm-hmm.
People are buying up real estate, they're buying cars, they're buying computers, like everything is going up. Where's the money coming from? Nobody was producing anything.
I mean, the reason why people are saying that is because they think we're in a time of, it's called like stagflation.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes inflation, you're like riding up a roller coaster, it's going up. And then you've got stagflation where it's like leveling out, and then deflation. But deflation causes a recession. And so what we're trying to do, well, what I think the government's trying to do is avoid that as much as they can, which is why they cut the interest rate so low, because they want to promote spending still.
Mm-hmm.
That way we don't go into a recession, because that hurts everyone. So it's really hard to say. A lot of it depends on what the Federal Reserve, the federal government's going to do. Because who knows? There's like a best case scenario that people are going to get paid more at their jobs because of this, and people are going to go back to work, and spending is just going to stay on track. But then there's the worst case scenario of inflation hitting too hard. People, I don't know, like don't get raises at work, and now everything is just a higher expense. And now they don't have their money is not going as far as it used to. And I think that's probably the more probable outcome.
Is that happening?
Yeah.
That's a scary thought.
I don't trust the government. That's just me.
Rightfully so. I think if we can take away anything from what's happened the past years, that maybe more people need to be a little skeptical.
And that's also why I promote like tax write-offs and having your own business, because if you're not, writing off your taxes, then you're giving your money to the government, and it's like just a general thing that the government mismanages money. So would you rather trust yourself with that money? And you can write off it to like charity and stuff, but then you choose.
Yeah.
But if you're paying those taxes, then it's like, okay,
where's your money really going?
Now the government's deciding what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
And just from sitting into so many, even just local meetings and seeing them waste so much money, I just think it's ridiculous. There are some things that we need as a society to function, like first responders, and we need roads, we need all that, we need infrastructure, but there's so many stupid things that we spend money on at the same time.
Yeah, our roads are terrible, and yet we're dumping all this money into these crosswalk corners.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, how about we take some of that and invest in the roads first, and then then we can do the sidewalks and we can do those corners if you want to do that. But the roads are pretty bad.
It's because we elect people that don't know how to manage money.
Yeah.
So then what happens? We get further into debt. We make terrible financial decisions that end up hurting the entire community. So.
Shitty politicians. We have poor leadership, and it's not working out for us.
Are you registered to vote?
Yeah.
I think they're recalling...
They are? Newsom? Yeah, I know.
And there's one candidate that I would recommend. His name is Kevin. His last name is like Paffrath or something. He's kind of in the middle ground candidate, but he's registered as a Democrat. But he is one of the other guys that I've watched on YouTube that created his own real estate business, and he talks about stocks all the time. He's really smart.
I'll have to check him
He's a
out.
smart financially, which I think is what California needs.
Yes, because our spending is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would recommend looking
I'll have
into
to check that
him.
out, yeah.
Yeah, he's a younger candidate too. He's like early 30s, and yeah, we need more people stepping up like him that have the education and financial literacy, because the people that are elected into governments, they control where the money goes. So you have to have a good understanding of how money works, and yeah, that's a very key element to being in control of money, is understanding it.
And I think he sounds like he's financially independent to some extent. And I
Oh
think,
yeah, he doesn't even have to run. Like a lot of
yeah,
people they run for these positions to make money, right? But he's already financially secure and retired
and I
at
think
like 30.
we need that because that at least provides the opportunity for him not to be beholden to
Yeah.
any donors or anything.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that like I hoped Trump would have utilized, was the fact that he had money and he didn't
Oh,
need to succumb to pressure.
yeah.
He obviously didn't, but we need people that aren't afraid to get into the system and actually make a change.
Mhm.
Because all you do is you look around and you see these politicians who say, "Oh yes, I'm going to check this box for you, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to clean up the streets, and I'm going to help the homeless, and we're going to make life better." And then they get into office and they don't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the same problems that we've been facing 5 years ago are the same ones we have now. Feels like they'll be the same ones in 5 years. Like, when do we start holding our officials accountable?
Yeah, and I mean, government spending is almost the exact opposite of business spending, because the government, they get a certain amount of money coming in, and if they're spending all of it, then they can petition for more money. But if they don't spend all that money, then it actually goes away after a certain amount of time. So that's why the government's constantly spending money on unnecessary things as well if they have extra. So it's completely backwards as to like a business owner who's trying to increase the profit margin and save and then reinvest. The government's kind of like, well, we want to spend everything. We want to make sure that we spend everything
Yeah,
so that we can get more funding next year.
that's a problem.
It's bizarre, yeah.
Because then it just falls on the taxpayers. Like, they're, okay, work harder because
Yeah.
we're going to need more of your money. So
Yeah,
I don't know what you're going to do.
these poor taxpayers, right?
Yeah, right? It's just,
Uh,
it's crazy. It feels so broken sometimes when you take a step back and look at the system and what's happening.
yeah, it is. The government picks winners and losers also. I mean, there's definitely we definitely saw that during the COVID pandemic also. 1/3 of small businesses closed
For good.
for good because of the government choosing winners and losers. I really feel for the small business owners that had to close,
I don't get why more
because
people aren't outraged about
they
that.
take such a big risk and invest all of their money into their business, all of their time. And then the government says that,
You
like,
can't work.
oh, you can't operate. We're not going to help you. And yeah, I really feel for those people. And then at the same time, like businesses now, what we see is a lot of sign up bonuses, and I mean that's great. We see wages going up. That's great. That's the best case scenario. If the business corporations are now raising wages because they're competing with unemployment now, right? Because there's so many people that decided not to work because they're getting more money sitting at home. So now the business owners are competing with that. But what happens for the business owners is that if they cannot compete, they close. And so there's kind of like a double-edged sword of business owner side versus employee, because you want wages to go up, right? But then at the same time, business owners are not only competing and raising their wages, which is good, but they also have to pay more for materials because there's less production over the last year. So everything's more expensive. So they don't have the profit maybe to even continue anymore. And then they have to pay higher taxes because of the people who've been at home. The business owners are now paying more taxes and insurance. So it's kind of like, oh, if you were pretty close, like not really making it, now you're just shut down for good.
Yeah.
Because, higher expenses, too much overhead cost. not enough, no profit coming in. So,
Which is a majority of small businesses that are
yeah.
just trying to get by.
Yeah, and it's really too bad because what is it, like 9 out of 10 businesses fail? So you have to have like that I'm not going to give up attitude and consistently even have that discipline to get to that position and
But
then
they didn't even
to
fail by
lose
their
it.
own fault. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they did something wrong and they mismanaged their money and then they had to close. No, the government said you don't get to be
Yeah.
open.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Target and Costco and these big
Yeah.
box stores get to stay open. But no, you're not essential, so we have to shut down your business.
Yeah, that just comes down to the whole like the government is not they pick winners and losers.
And people are wanting to go back to that. That's the crazy thing is we've we've made it out of this somewhat destructive state and now people are like, no, we need to go back and we need to start shutting things down again and we need to mask back up and we need to get these vaccine passports and we need to we're just the pendulum is swinging so far right now that I'm worried if it's going to bounce back. I don't think
Yeah.
we're making smart choices because people are still afraid.
Ooh, yeah, it's a difficult one. I mean, there have been a lot of people that have died from the pandemic, and I really feel for those people and their families that had to experience that. So, I mean, there is a cause for the fear, um, and then with the government and the media coming out with so much information about, oh, there's a new variant, there's this and that, and I don't know. I mean, it's a really tough call because you don't know how bad it could potentially get. I know that right now they're saying that it's not as bad as like even cancer or people who overdose on drugs. It's not as statistically high as for that, but I mean, yeah, it's a tough call to be in that position. Same with like getting the vaccine in general. Like I hold nothing against people who don't get it. And if you do have it, that's great. I mean, it's up to you. It just seems like, I got it just so that I could continue working, but it kind of seems like, well, if there's all these different variants, then the vaccine doesn't cover that, then, is it really worth getting the vaccine? What if you have a reaction to the vaccine that's not good? It's like a risk of, well, the vaccine might cause something, allergic reaction or whatever. And then if you do get the vaccine, it lowers your chances of getting it, but you could still get it. So it's like I don't really
It's hard deciphering what to actually do because
yeah.
there's a lot of fear porn is the word that I've
Yeah.
heard and I've thrown around because I like it, but that's what it is. Like the media and these politicians back when Trump was in office, they shit all over the vaccine and they shit all over anything he touched. And then now it's the opposite. And it's like, it's understandable that people are hesitant and it's understandable people don't trust what they're saying and what the media is saying. It's because you guys are full of shit to some extent. You guys,
Mhm.
you guys are playing the numbers and now you're trying to be serious to some extent.
Yeah.
And you're like, why aren't people listening to us? Well, you can't manipulate people and then expect them to just continue following what you're saying.
Yeah. But just for the record, I did get vaccinated and I didn't have any severe like
No bad
aftermath
reactions
like
or anything.
yeah, I didn't have any terrible side effects or anything. So
Well, that's good.
yeah. But anyways, let's see, what have I not gone over? I went over like
Talk to me about the
explaining.
LLC.
Okay,
Did you start that
so
to protect your rentals and properties so that if
yeah.
something were to happen, you're covered?
Yeah, it is it's important to have an LLC for a business when you start acquiring more money because the more money that you acquire, the more of a target you are.
Hmm.
People love to sue, and if someone sues you and you don't have an LLC, then you yourself as an individual are now subject to they could take away your truck, they could take away your house, they could take away all your finances, and all that would be counted. But if you have an LLC, then only the LLC can be sued.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
And
just a
so
protection.
do you have certain assets under the LLC then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's the next step is putting more assets under that LLC. Saving more money, investing. I kind of want to get another job just so that I can.
How many jobs do you have now?
I just have one right now.
Okay.
I have I dispatch full time, and then I am a volunteer firefighter.
I saw that. I was going to ask you about that. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
Do you
and
like doing that?
oh, it's great. Yeah, my fire chief is super awesome. And there's a fire pretty close to my house right now. So it's been a great experience because volunteer fire departments, like the one that I'm at, we're so versatile. We have, over the bank, like over the cliff type stuff because we're in the mountains. We've got any medical call that comes in, we show up to. So I've seen a lot of stuff. And then we've got, the fires, house fires we show up to. And we get training. It's really awesome. It's like, you sign up for PTSD, but you get so much life-saving training. And when somebody shows up to the fire department meeting that you helped, it's a really awesome feeling. Like,
Oh, I bet.
oh, wow, like, you broke your hip just 2 months ago and now you're walking again. And it's super awesome, like, working on them when it first happened and trying to calm the situation and then seeing them doing better and being grateful for what you did to help them is it's really good. I like it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, first responding is the great career path that I ended up choosing, and I plan on doing that the next 10 years, and then just like real estate investing and business, entrepreneurship is where a lot of my passion is, like, but it takes a lot of money to get into.
Yeah.
And not having anyone to fall back on, like, you have to choose something that's going to keep you stable. And being a first responder's a good job.
And it sounds like you're kind of passionate about
Yeah,
it. Like you like doing it, which is
I do.
great.
Yeah, it's a family, everyone that I work with is so amazing and heroic. It's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
What are your plans? Like what are you on track for?
I am still just bumbling my way through life, I guess. I am planning on moving here in a couple months, and I think that's going to be the jumping off point to see what the future holds.
Moving again?
Yes.
To where?
I think LA. Although I kind of like Texas.
It's so expensive
I
there.
know. The rent
what?
is ridiculous. I'm not sure. I kind of I don't think I've said this on the podcast yet. I kind of want to get into acting. I don't know if it would be something I would pursue or if I could even pursue it. But I've noticed in my life that I have these passions, and as long as I continually follow a passion, I make progress towards some goal that I haven't quite figured out. Like, I think doing the podcast was a step in the right direction.
So what are the steps that you need in order to become an actor?
That's a great question.
Show up to auditions? Which are all in, what, primarily LA?
LA's like the big spot. LA or New York are like the big, if you want to try to be an actor, those are the two places you kind of have to be. Although it's decentralized a little bit because of COVID. But those are still like the two hubs.
How do you even hear if there's an audition or not?
You can get an agent, or there's sites, and they post casting calls, and
Couldn't you do that from here and then just fly to LA for the
Yes,
audition?
I could do that. I've gotten a couple auditions from up here actually and submitted like self-tapes and stuff and done it that way. But then you go down there. That is an option. I really just want to get out of Humboldt though.
Why?
I don't feel like my purpose is here. That's what I keep telling myself.
Your purpose is here?
Yeah.
Like what?
I think that my life would not be what I want it to be if I stayed here.
What do you want your life to be?
I don't. Well, I work for my dad right now. He's got a small business. He's a small business owner.
Cool.
And I've always, that's always been a path that I could have walked down. And it still is. And I feel like the longer I stay here, the more I'm going to get pulled into that direction. But I recognize that I wouldn't be happy with my life if that's the path I went down. And so it's almost like being here, in a weird way, it's
you
like... You
get too lazy to, switch career paths? Because you're so comfortable working for your dad?
It's not lazy. It's, like, there's a life and there's a path towards that life. And if I stay here, I know what my life would be. And it wouldn't be a bad life. Like, it would be a great life. I would be able to invest a lot more money because I'd have a stable job and I'd be able to do these other pursuits. But I don't think that I would be happy with that life if I stayed here. And so I think, for better or worse, I've attributed that life to Humboldt. And I see my only option is getting out of Humboldt. Otherwise, I think I would slip into that path. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm trying to process that idea as I'm saying
Well,
it out loud.
it sounds to me like what you're saying is that if you were to stay here, you'd be so comfortable with the idea that you have of staying here, and you've already got that vision, and you haven't thought of any different visions of staying here in Humboldt, that you have to move.
Yeah. Yeah. I like being uncomfortable. I think I've learned in my life
Okay.
that, like, I woke up one day, I don't think I've talked about this either. I woke up one day and just ran a marathon
Oh,
around
okay.
Eureka. I just started running because I
Okay.
felt like I'd become too soft. Like, I wasn't pushing myself, I wasn't challenging myself, and
Yeah.
so I just started running. And luckily my parents, or unluckily for them, I was like, "Oh, let's just go do 4 miles." And so my mom and dad were on their bikes. And then I hit 6 miles, and then I hit 12 miles, and I was like, I am running a marathon now. And so I just started running around town, and that kind of sparked the idea that I got to get out. I have to keep pushing myself to see. It's kind of sadistic in a way.
I
I feel like,
understand now more better that you
okay,
explain that, because
okay.
I was like that
Mhm.
also, which is why I started working for the airlines. That's why I went to so many different countries, because it's like an adventurous spirit that you
Yes.
just want to see what's out there.
Yeah.
And that's what's driving me now, is wanting that lifestyle, but understanding that I need to be able to afford that lifestyle,
Mhm.
because I want to be able to get on a plane and go tomorrow if I want to. Um, but I also know that there's that sacrifice too.
Yeah.
So,
I think
I
that's
mean,
something
you
that,
just got to plan it out.
yes.
How are you going to get to that point where you can do that?
I think that's something I struggle with because on my path to financial freedom, I recognize it would be easier getting there if I stayed here because I can work.
Why not sacrifice then for a few years?
I
You're still so
I
young.
know.
Okay,
That's what I always tell
you
people. I
have
always say you're so young,
you
you could do
have to
it.
break it down as to
This is good. This is
you
my little
kind of
corner
have to
advice right
humble
here.
yourself a little bit. You know, at this point in your early 20s, you can live like really frugally. You have a lot of advantages to save money. People don't expect that much from you to be well off
Thank
already.
God, because that would be awkward.
Yeah, and so you really have time on your side to invest.
Hmm.
So right now is the best time to work your ass off, invest your money, sacrifice. That is the main things that'll really set you ahead so that you can have this lifestyle for the rest of your life come 30. You just have to understand that you really have to grind, work your ass off in your 20s. And so I also want to take that step to where I can, like, okay, my goal is that when I turn 33, like, I either want to run for governor of California, or I want to, like, go back and work for the airlines and just travel everywhere that I want to for free. That way I can just get on a plane and go. So I already see that, like, path to get there. But what you need is, like, okay, if you really want that freedom to, I don't know, just adventure a lot, then you're going to have to really grind and hustle to get there starting out. Or
Yeah.
you're going to have to be really resourceful. Like, you're going to be living super poor. You could do it. You just have a really tight budget. And for me, like, I did that. I went and I volunteered for, like, a Peace Corps type thing, and then I
Yeah, you went to
volunteered
Africa,
in
right?
other countries, and yeah, in Africa and throughout Asia. And I lived super frugally. And when I was working for the airlines, I just didn't have very much disposable income to keep it going and to actually have a life. You know,
Hmm.
getting my shit together, I needed to do that first. But now that I've done that, I see, like, okay, there is a lot of resources out there. And just having a little bit more money coming in from, like, rental properties or business. And what the whole goal of having a business is that eventually you can walk away from it. Just have that passive income.
Yeah.
So it really depends on how much do you need every month in order to afford that lifestyle of adventure that you want. Like, what are you talking about? Do you want to RV around the US? Do you want to fly everywhere? Do you want to sail on a sailboat to, the Bahamas or something? Like, what is it that you want to do that's going to fulfill you inside and your sense of adventure? And then start planning how you're going to be able to get there financially to afford it, to where you are not scared about running out of money, so that you can be financially independent at the same time.
Which is the big thing.
Yeah, and that comes through sacrifice. You have to work your ass off, and you have to be understand the chapter that you're on in life right now is just the beginning. And in the beginning, you don't start out super wealthy unless you've really hit it big, or it's like you just have to keep a level head and focus on figuring out how you can earn that disposable income every month so that you have that freedom. And if you're too bored right now, pick up more work.
Yeah.
Hustle harder. Like, it'll get you where you want to be quicker. And don't lose sight of that. Like, don't lose your adventurous spirit. Use that to motivate you so that you can get there quicker. Just depends on what you want to do, what your budget is. Like, for me, I want to have a budget of at least $5,000 a month that I can just use and dispose of, travel, retire. And then I can do that. I can do whatever I want. Like, I don't think I'm going to stop working. I'll definitely find something that I want to do, but I won't be stressed. I won't have that heavy weight on my shoulders.
Which is exactly what it is.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Figure out how you can get that passive income, because there's ways to do it through creating your own business. And this doesn't have to be real estate, even though that's what I chose and that's what I think I found to be the smartest move. It could be like Amazon. People selling products on Amazon. You buy things from like a website, Alibaba.
Yeah.
Buy
That's
products.
like drop shipping, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just buy products from there, get it shipped from China, it goes straight to the Amazon warehouse, and you sell products on Amazon. A lot of people are doing really well with that. If you really set your mind to something like that, the income earning potential is unlimited. And so that's really what I'd recommend, is find something that's going to make you that profit. And like, I don't know what small business your dad has, but is there any way that you would be able to eventually take over and then make it passive?
Yeah. There's no potential to make it passive just because it is such a niche business.
Oh.
That, I mean, it's...
Well, then, yeah, that doesn't sound like it's right for you then, because you have that spirit of wanting to move around, which is great.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's not even so much adventure. Adventure is definitely a part of it, but it's more, I don't know how I'm going to use this word, but it's not necessarily this. It's suffering. Like, I appreciate suffering in a weird way. Like, I think my biggest thing, and I go back and forth because part of me wants to stay and work for 5 years because that's all it would take, and I would be set. Like, I've mapped it out and I see that. But then part of me also, like, I'm very interested in the military, and I think part of me would want to go down that path. I have this weird thing where I want to push myself to see how far I could go before I could break. And it sounds weird to people when I say that, because they're like, what does that mean?
That's just kind of another way of explaining you want to know how much self-discipline you're able to acquire.
Yes. That really is what it is you want to see, like, I love working out and I love doing these things that push me, and I almost want to see, is there a wall? Is there a boundary? Because how many people go through life and they don't know what they're actually capable of? Whether it's finance and investing, or through some, strenuous physical activity like running a marathon or running one of those ultra endurance marathons, or
I mean, you could have the
scuba
best
diving.
of both worlds. The military is a really great outlet to put you ahead. It doesn't pay a whole lot, but it gives you the opportunity to make a lot.
Yeah.
It trains you, and there are things that you can do while in the military to make a lot of money. I mean, you could start your own online marketing business, market through social media. Like, there's ways that you can make money on the side still.
Yeah. And the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think I'm just I'm at that age where I'm like a dog with a bone, where I get an idea and I latch onto that and start running with it.
Focus on what you really want. The clearer that your focus is on what you want, and the more that you feel it in your heart that that's right for you, the more that you're going to do it. Like, I think every day about where I'm going to be in the future and what I want. And sometimes it changes over time, but I try and keep myself disciplined. And a lot of it comes from my own fear of not being self-sufficient and, being in a place where I don't have the money coming in to cover the mortgage or the rent or whatever it might be. So a lot of it just comes on to like self-reliance. I want self-reliance. So that's why I want to be an entrepreneur. But for you, it's got to be like, what is your big reason why?
You have to find that motivating factor. That's a big part of it. Because otherwise you're not going to stick with anything.
Because there's a harsh reality to life. There just is. Like,
Oh, it's not a nice place. That's what...
It can be, but
we get delusioned because we live in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have like rose-colored glasses because life is hard here, but it's definitely not as hard as it is in other countries. Like our definition of hard and the definition of hard in Africa or in any country in the Middle East or Lebanon or
Mm-hmm.
I mean take your pick, or it's not comparable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not. It's two different standards of living. It's two different lives. It's two different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are countries that don't have running water, and we use clean water in our toilets. Like it's just not the same.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you should go there. Maybe you should, like, if you like the hardship and you want to learn about how much you can discipline yourself and see how much positivity you can create in the world while going through your own hardship, maybe you should go volunteer there, or I don't know. That might be a good thing. But I mean, the cool thing is that no matter where you go, there's going to be hardship, but like you said, there's different levels. And what really makes me happy is knowing that the more resources that I have, the more money that I'll make, the more power, because money is just energy.
Yeah.
So the more energy I'm able to control, the more that I'm able to impact people going through hardships. So I can go on more, I don't know, like I can donate to more charitable causes. I can do things that make the world less negative of a place.
I think that's a noble pursuit. There's that quote. I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like you can't help the poor if you're one of them.
Oh yeah.
Like you have to rise above the circumstances you're in if you ever want to make a real impact.
Yeah.
And you need, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, you need money if you want to make a real impact. You just do.
It's part of it. I mean, caring is so important, but really the energy of being able to lift someone off of their feet financially is what will make the most impact for a lot of people. But I mean, caring is really important too.
And those YouTube videos you're going to start making are going to help. That, I think, will lift up a lot of people.
Yeah, we'll see if I can figure out how to do that.
I don't have a lot of experience, but I would be more than happy to offer.
Your studio is a really
that.
great start.
It's coming together. We're slowly turning it into something. I'm not sure what yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah, I mean it's fully set up. I wish that the cameras like showed this on your
video
because you got like decorations and like a cool table and stuff.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's been fun.
Yeah. Let me look through my notes really quick, see if I'm missing anything that we haven't talked over. Oh yeah, I was gonna talk about how to analyze a real estate deal also.
Yeah,
because
and pick like a good investment.
There's some people that buy a house that regret it because they bought in too high, they didn't get a good deal, and that's super important. And the three things that you really have to focus on with real estate is it a good deal? Is it undervalued for the market? And what I do is I look at houses that need a little bit of work. They're not you know, the most modern. They need some updating. And I like those houses because they're typically undervalued. And the cost to go in and paint it and update it is less than the selling price would be for a house that already has those things. So there you save money in value. The other thing is, finding a deal, which you have to analyze throughout the market. And then there's the cash flow potential. So how much are the houses in the area renting for versus how much your mortgage is going to be? And this can be broken down into your cash on cash return, which is something that would be really good explained if I wrote down all the numbers. But basically what you do is you write down all the costs, all of the income that you have, and you subtract that and you see how much your profit is after that. And then you take the number that you initially invested and you divide that by the annual cash flow, which is the annual profit that you have. And then you get a percentage. And so you want to make sure that it's a good percentage. Like for me, my houses are around 30%. And the stock market's at like 7. So when you compare that, like, oh wow, 30% return versus 7% return makes it
It's a big difference.
really easy. But it depends on the deal. So if your house isn't cash flowing money and it doesn't come out to be a good percentage, then it's not a good deal. You don't want to invest in that because it's just a sinking ship. You're just throwing money into the flames, basically. So learning how to analyze a deal is super important also. And for me, I was pretty fortunate in finding these really good deals, even in today's market. And today's market is only crazy because of the COVID pandemic. So we have all these buyers that are looking for properties. We have the least amount of houses on the market that we've had in, I don't even know how long. And then we've got interest rates cut super low. So the lower that the interest rate is, the more buyers there are, because the more people can qualify for loans, the less money they're going to have to pay overall. And so that caused all the prices to go up because now you have a supply and demand issue. So that's what caused all the real estate to boom. And the federal government is talking about raising the interest rates, and then there's going to be a wave of evictions pretty soon. So that might impact the market as well. We might see less buyers when interest rates go up. But who knows?
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting to see what happens. It's that eviction moratorium, right? That they I think they extended it another month for some portion of the population, but when that goes up, we're going to see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole economy during the COVID pandemic was pretty crazy. I was really fortunate that I bought my house before then because I think the average cost of a house went up 17% in the last year across the board in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. So that return after 2 years, 1 year. I just got really lucky with the timing.
You got in
There's no way
perfect.
that I could have foreseen the COVID pandemic happening.
Mm.
So I just got lucky. But I think that eventually we'll flatten out the real estate market. And then I really believe that unless the government does something, the United States will eventually turn into a nation of renters.
That's what a lot of people are saying.
There's so many real estate investors and there's so much profit in that eventually it'll just expand so big that there's really little to no chance of people buying their own house, which is sad. So buy a house now.
And unfortunate because, property is really one of the last frontiers for creating generational wealth. It's property. The stock market's up there too, but property is really, really the best method. And if people lose that,
Yeah, to me, it's like above all the best investment because you've got tax write-offs, you've got appreciation, you can count depreciation on your taxes also. You've got a stable income, you've got um, exact numbers that you can calculate on for your returns, and then you can pass it down to your kids.
Yeah.
The only time you have to pay taxes on it is when maybe your kids sell it, and then it's not as high of a rate. So there's a lot of generational wealth created through that, which I'm probably going to leave all my properties to my kids, and then they'll have a place to live. Because I think that even though my parents didn't, I don't expect them to give me anything in life after turning 18. I think that if I do become a parent, it'll be my responsibility to have my kids have a place to stay, like make sure they're not homeless.
Yeah.
That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's my view too. I want to build enough wealth that my kids don't ever have to work, but that they want to. That they have that work. Because that's the thing, right? You don't want to raise a bunch of spoiled kids that
Yeah.
don't have a work ethic
Yeah.
and blow it all. You
Mhm.
want them to be well off to where it's not an issue, but that they can expand on that wealth and add to it in their
Yeah.
own way.
Yep. A lot of that comes with like discipline and education. It's too bad that there's so many wealthy parents that just don't instill that in their kids. And there's like certain wealthy families that don't spoil their children and their children turn out really level-headed and then they end up doing even better with what they have. And then there's other families that never, they want to spoil their kids, and it's too bad that the spoiling aspect of giving your kids everything that they want doesn't teach them any life skills
Yeah.
on how to sustain themselves. And then just like spend all their parents' money. It's too bad.
Do you feel kind of like you're an oddity, I guess, in a sense, because you are so disciplined? Like I'm sitting here listening to you. I'm so glad we're recording because I'm gonna have to go back and take notes on all this. But I mean, if I had to sit and think of the people in my life who have the discipline to really achieve what they set their mind to, there's a handful. I could probably count them on one hand. And I mean, you definitely cut that list, but that's not normal, I
I
guess.
I don't consider myself an oddity just because the people that I listen to
Are kind of preaching the same
are
thing.
so much better than me.
Mm.
And so it really depends on who you surround yourself with. I still see myself as so small and like just barely making an impact. I've failed so many times and I'm not anywhere close to where I want to be, even though people tell me sometimes, like, oh, you're doing so good. And, to have your net worth and your houses and everything. But to me, it's like I see myself being able to do better and just like knowing what's out there and what I can achieve. I still don't see myself as an oddity. I'm still just like struggling and hustling and just like what I would expect everybody else to be doing that is in my circle.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's certain bad influences in your life that I
Oh
just
yeah.
don't. I mean, I'm picky with who I spend time with because those people will impact you, whether you like it or not, in negative ways if they have negative lifestyles, and they'll make an impact on you subconsciously. So sometimes what I do is I just look like, do you know who Grant Cardone is?
Yes.
I'll
Yep.
just listen to Grant Cardone or something and put on his podcast and listen to it just because it creates a subconscious of achievement and coming from, poverty, and then, I don't know, like just making something big out of it and knowing that you can achieve it, because everybody has that voice in their head that says that they can't do it. But the more that you listen to stories of people that are succeeding, the more that you're like, oh wow, like if I don't succeed, then I'm the oddity. Like if everybody in your life is doing big great things, then there's like this, okay, well, I'm going to do that as well. There's like a pressure that I put on myself to do that. Not that I like won't be happy if I don't achieve it, but just that I put that on myself with purpose.
And that's important. I mean, there's that another cheesy quote that's, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Oh
And that's a
yeah.
real thing.
Yeah.
Like if you surround yourself with people who have no ambition and have no drive and have no goals, you're
Yeah.
going to blink and it's going to be 30 years later and that's going to be you.
Yeah, and everybody's got different ideas of what they want their life to be like, and I think what I'm just good at is figuring out how to piece it together so that they can do that. Like maybe I should just be like I just like giving advice to people. Like, oh, you want to do this? You want to sail? Like, this is how much money you'll need, and this is how you can do it reasonably in 5 years. Or like, oh, you want to take an RV across the country? Like, well, if you put in 2 years worth of work and like do the steps that I say, then you can do that the rest of your life and live that lifestyle that you want if you want to. I think I'm just good at like figuring out how to get there. But I'll still fail along the way. Like, I ran for office, I didn't get elected. I learned a lot, and I still am passionate about that, but, it's like I still am not, I still don't succeed everything that I try at. It's just part of the lesson, and that you learn from it, and that you just keep going and you never give up, and you find a different route to take. If something doesn't work for you, then you just find a different way to get there. Whatever you had a hard time with on the first time that you tried, like for me, a lot of it was struggling with finances. Then okay, well, I need to focus on finances. And then yeah, you just focus on that and you push forward. And then you kind of change the way that you're going, but in the end it'll get you to where you want to be. And I think like part of it is luck. You come in at the right time, or you have the right, I don't know, like right timing, right resources and stuff. But there's also just like people who don't give up and continuously work are the ones that are long term successful. People that are like overnight rich and all this stuff, like 9 out of 10 times they lose it all.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand it. They don't have all the knowledge. Like part of the journey is obtaining the knowledge and the mistakes and learning how to, because you want to fail early on. That'll save you so much more money later on in life. All the mistakes that I made, I'm so glad that I learned from those so early. Even though they could have been avoided, like if I had more mentorship from somebody. But I mean, there's some things that even mentors can't predict happening, and some things I had mentorship with and I still failed, but I learned from.
That's all part of it.
Yeah.
That resonates with me, that failing young, because when I was, a kid back in high school, like I was making money and I was blowing it just as fast as I could put it. I was buying cars, I was buying motorcycles, I was, and then luckily I hit this point where it's like you stop and you look around and you're like, okay, why do I feel the need to buy these things? Like what? Because you're not buying assets. You're buying things that you're going to buy for $5,000 or $10,000 and you're going to sell for 4. Like you're not making any money off these things.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did that then, and it wasn't, crazy expensive, because if I was going crazy now, I'd be living out of a box on 2nd Street. Like you gotta take your wins and your losses in stride. And as long as you learn from it, I think that's all that matters.
Yeah. Have you done any investing yet into like
Yeah,
a Roth or 401k?
I'm into the stock market.
Okay.
That's a start. I've got a lot saved. I'm kind of just hoping that the housing market crashes, and then that's gonna be my kind of intro into that.
Well, Robert Kiyosaki, who's the author of the book that I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he thinks that there's gonna be a crash.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh, this is the top of the market, I'm not gonna buy. But then there's like other financial experts that are like, no, this isn't a crash, it's gonna flatten out. And so you might as well take advantage of the interest rates before they rise.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like, You just analyze the deal and see if there's a deal. And if you do see one, if you start looking and you find one, then what's holding you back from jumping at it, you know?
Yeah.
The fear of it crashing, but then it'll always go back up.
Yeah, and if you get, that's the key, right? Is if you get the
It's a
good deal.
long-term investment.
Yeah.
And never stretch yourself too thin, of course. You want to make sure that you're still comfortable with the mortgage payment, but it'll bounce back up.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is like with refinancing, I refinanced my house, and I just want to put out a little bit of caution about refinancing, because let's say you're 10 or 15 years into your home loan, and what you've been doing is you've been paying all of your interest up front. So you haven't even started making your house, like putting the money towards into your house, depending on what the numbers are, but this could happen. And then you refinance at 10 to 15 years, and what that does is it resets. Now you have high interest rates all over again, and you're not putting the money into your house. So there's like all of these different things that they don't teach you that you could easily make a mistake on, and then it costs you so much money in the end. Like, I just wish that all of this was taught in school, because
It's crazy that it's not.
yeah.
It's really, I mean, it really is crazy that it's not.
Do you think that maybe teachers don't really have a
I don't
real
think-
reality of life? Because some of my teachers were so strict. They were just like, oh, well, if you don't turn your paper or your essay in a file, like, you're going to fail in life. Like, that in the real world, your boss won't accept it without a file or something, which is so stupid. And I'm just like, that's not even the real world. Like, I've never had a job that is so strict and anal about that.
Yeah.
Like, did the teacher just, like, never have a real job? Like, teaching is a real job. What I mean is, like, did they never have a job outside of education and, like,
Yes.
schooling?
That's the problem.
Like,
It's the problem that we've been talking about with just the education system. Is you have to think that that teachers are basically kids that never left college, right? They stayed in the education system,
yeah.
and instead of going out into the real world, not that they're not out in the real world,
Yeah.
but instead of going into like the corporate world, or like
It's different,
it's
though.
different. They stayed in education. They stayed in academia,
Yeah.
and so I don't think they have a great sense. I met one teacher in all my life who really was like, I've been investing in a Roth IRA since I was 21. I've been doing real estate deals. Like, the
Yeah.
best advice I ever got was when I was 20. I had this guy, he worked at like a grocery store or something. He was like, this guy came in and talked to me for 20 minutes, and he had a ton of money, and I took everything he said to heart, and I started
Yeah.
investing.
Yes.
And I was like, nobody's saying that.
Did he talk about that in class?
No, I talked to him. I know.
Why not talk about that in
know.
class?
I think I went and talked to him after class about like an exam question or something, and we just like got talking, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is what we somehow got on money."
If they
but
know that, why don't they spend some time like incorporating that into their lesson plan?
I don't think I would argue that a majority do not know that. I think it's just not spoken about, especially in academia. It's not. Because, I mean, they taught us cursive, and they were like, oh, you're going to need to learn cursive, because if you want to be anything in life, cursive is important.
Yeah. But, like, it would be so easy for math professors to incorporate, like, everything into their real life. Like, oh, this is a statistics class, and we're going to be going over statistically, like, all of these different numbers about demographics of, like, student loans and this and that. And then we're going to be talking about how home loans work and do the math behind it, because that's all math. It's all numbers. So why not just like focus on real life situations instead of like made up analogies?
Stuff, yeah.
Like
Pythagoras theorem that we used in class and never in the outside world. They should just offer an actual class for it. Like, you can take pottery, you can take painting. Why can't you take investment 101 or financial literacy 101? Like, why not just offer that as a class for juniors and seniors? Say, hey, okay, this, some of you are going to go to college, some of you are going to go into the world. Like, this class is going to help you prepare on how to build wealth.
I really think that this should be taught to everyone, because it is just like, I want people to do better, especially in Humboldt. I want us to do better in general. And a lot of people are hung up on financial skills and struggling when they don't have to be if they just have the education. It's so important for everyone to know. Like, there's a lot of, especially females, I hate to say this, but like a lot of females that just like block things out when it comes to stocks and stuff. Like, I see on social media them like making fun of their boyfriends or significant other when they talk about stocks, and I'm just like, what? That's like ridiculous, because this is just basic financial literacy that everybody should know, in my opinion. And it's really too bad that it's like almost like a stigma for women. That's just at least my viewpoint of it. And like being a woman that's like super into investing and real estate and like having my own business, there's like not a whole lot of people on the same track. Like some of the real estate podcasts that I listen to, they're like, oh, 80 to 90% of our viewers are males. I'm like, why is that?
That's weird because it affects us all
Like,
equally.
why? Yeah, like, why is that? Is it just not encouraged? I don't know. I'm not sure. I
Oh.
think I am an oddity for a female, because like all of my mentors and stuff, they're males too.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 95% are males that are doing well and have their own businesses. And there's just as much opportunity for females to get into business. It doesn't matter what you are. It doesn't matter if you're female, male, if you're bisexual or LGBTQ or what race or ethnicity you're from. It doesn't matter. Like, you can jump into business. It really doesn't matter who you are. So I just never really understood that.
I wonder why that is.
I mean, there are some studies that like home appraisals are skewed if people of color are there, which is super crazy, right? Like, that's crazy. But I don't know. I don't see that being the case for like everything in life. Like, there's so much opportunities for everyone out there to become like get into financial literacy and stuff, and there's just like crickets. I don't know.
I wonder if that is an interest thing, because one of the things that I've heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, and I can't remember who I was listening to. I think it might have been a podcast or some YouTube video or something, but they were talking about, this was a while ago, back when like the pay gap was all anybody was talking about.
Uh-huh.
And they were talking about it in reference to like STEM fields and how, there's not a lot of women in tech and in these positions of power at these companies, and they couldn't figure out why. And this guy was trying to explain it from his view, and it was that, statistically women aren't interested in these stereotypical tech career fields. Like, they don't want to sit at a computer for 12 hours. They don't like that aspect. Some do. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to
Yeah.
generalize.
Yeah.
But he was saying, most women don't like those paths. They would rather work in a teaching setting or work in healthcare and be a doctor or do these things where they don't have to work 100 hours, where they can have a family, like these different career paths. And you're saying that's why it's skewed. It's because it's off of interest. But I don't know if that would translate into financial aspects like this, because that affects all of us. That seems like it would be
I
more of a
wonder
motivational
I
thing.
wonder how often people get inspired and motivated just by their own demographic. I
That's
wonder if
interesting.
people are like skewed towards like, oh, I'm going to take advice from them because they look like me, or like I'm going to be inspired by this person because they look like me, and then they follow down the same path.
Well, I used to think representation didn't matter. And as I've gotten older, I recognize that it does have its place. So maybe because there aren't that many women talking about it, like there's not any for like a young girl to
Like,
look
people
to and
like to
see.
fit in, I guess.
I don't know if it's that, or if it's maybe they don't think they can do it until they see someone that looks like them do it, and then it's like, oh, the road's been paved. Like, here's the blueprint for me to follow.
Yeah,
In a way.
maybe. Maybe that's what it is. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm kind of a a weird person, so I don't know. Like, this never really mattered to me, not something that I could really figure out.
That's good though. That's the people that achieve
They
the
usually
greatest things in
don't
life. They don't
fit
listen
in.
yeah, and they don't listen. Not that you don't fit
No,
in,
I definitely don't fit
but
in. I
well,
don't.
if having financial literacy, that's definitely not the norm. So for sure on that aspect, you don't fit in, which is a good thing.
When I was going throughout school, I never felt like I really fit into any groups. And when I was in early education, I struggled a lot. I was super far behind because I had dyslexia, and I was like put into almost like a special class because I had such a hard time reading. And yeah, I don't think I'm anything special. I've always been kind of weird, but I don't know, maybe that's like an advantage.
But what does that even
I
mean?
don't
Because I'm sitting here,
know.
I'm fascinated by everything you've had to say. That, I think weird is just people that don't subscribe to the norm, that push against these boundaries of like, this is, I'm gonna create my own box.
I think very few people really find what I say to be interesting when I really get into my rants about like, oh, I want to talk about taxes and like how you can avoid, like, who wants to talk about taxes unless you're really trying to sell yourself up, or like, you're genuinely like, or genuinely interested in um I don't know, like how it can benefit your future. But there's a lot of people that just like don't want to hear it, and they're just like, oh, not this again. Like,
I would argue there's a lot more that do want to hear it. They might not have just found you yet. Because I think there's a lot of people, and you are articulate and you're smart, and like the way you lay this out, aside from the pencil example that I fumbled when you tried to throw it to me, but other than that, I mean,
simple.
yeah, right? Simple
I
arithmetic, not my
tried.
strong suit. But you lay it out in a way where it's like, I'm sitting here and everything is like, I'm understanding everything. Like, I understand these steps, and it's like, you make the information, um, like consumable
I
in
need it
a
to
good
be
way.
I need it to be both educational and entertaining, and I think I struggle with like the entertaining part of it.
No, I think you did. I think literally every word that you said, I've been like on the edge of my. I was joking about taking notes, but I'm glad that this is recorded because I want to listen back to get that.
Okay, just as a test, is if like people are listening to this and they've gotten to this point, just leave a comment if you find this interesting. Because
Yes.
I bet there's gonna be like no comments. But it's like easier when we're talking face to face, to stay on track and be like, oh, okay.
Soundtrack. What do you had? For people that can't see, you have legitimately like 6 pages of notes, which is incredible and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, I wish that I could write down some of the information on a whiteboard just so that people can pause or like look
And
at
check it
it and
out.
be like, "Oh, these numbers, this is how she does the math behind it," which I want to make a video about. And um I made like an Instagram account called Investment Queen, and I just put short videos of like running the numbers, like little lessons for people using TikTok. And I put in like music so that it's kind of entertaining, so people follow and they're like, oh, this is fun. Yeah, I'm going to do this. But then it ends up benefiting them. So I go over like really simple stuff like that, just briefly touching on things. And then they showed my house remodel and what I did to it. And I really enjoy like part of my happiness in like getting into real estate is just my enjoyment of painting and like interior design and fixing things to make them look better. It's just part of it. Cause I like creating, and like I see like I'm so proud of some people that go into small business on their own. Like they create candles or jewelry and stuff like that. Like that's the first step, really. And for me, it's just like my outlet is just like houses, like flipping houses is just fun. It just comes from like, oh, I just have fun doing this, so this is what I'm gonna do. Like my hobby's just really expensive. All my hobbies are just really expensive.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, I can appreciate on a different level, not quite as expensive, but yeah,
see,
I can appreciate
like one
that.
of the disadvantages of me is like I'm really frugal, and so I'm really like suppressing my own enjoyment right now, because my hobbies are so expensive. Like I like motorcycles and I like traveling, and those are some of the most expensive hobbies that you can have.
Do you struggle with like trying to find a balance? Because you are young, and I'm sure you do want to buy a motorcycle and
Yeah.
take that vacation. Do you
hmm
struggle trying to balance? Okay, like I want to save, so I stay on track to do what I need to do, but I also, I'm in my 20s and I want to go do these things, and I want to go out on a Friday night, and I want to go see my friends.
Yeah. Well, I think what I've done is I've focused completely on one thing and then moved on to the next. So, right after I graduated high school, I was really into the traveling aspect. And so I went to like 20 different countries in like the course of 3 years. And I got educated, and I did that through basically for free through resourcefulness. Like I worked for the airlines, and then I volunteered with a program and fundraised for it, and I basically did all of that for free. And then I did get my motorcycle license, and I had a bike that I was fixing up because it was really cheap. And um, I think I just focused on one thing after another. And then I came to the realization that if I just focus right now on working really hard and staying on track of investing, then I'll be able to have complete fun and do whatever I want in my 30s.
That is a really hard thing for people to do.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about delayed gratification, but that is like, I mean, it makes fantastic sense when you
hmm
lay it out. Like, okay, sacrifice your 20s and enjoy your 30s, whereas most people
They
sacrifice their
enjoy their
20. Yeah,
20s and then they build in their 30s, right? And I kind of want to do the opposite.
but that just means you get a head start. Like
Yeah.
people that are going to be working into their 30s and their 40s, maybe even their 50s, you're going to be kicking back on a beach at 30,
Yeah.
drinking a mimosa, saying, "Well, worth it." Like that's part
hmm
of it, but that level of discipline is, I mean, I'm over it. Like that is incredible.
Just let me like brush off some of it on you right now.
Yeah, right? Like, I just need a little bit. Just a little bit and I would be set.
Also, like kids. A lot of people are having kids right now, and I love kids. I'd love to have a kid, but there's a cost to that with time and expense. And there's so many kids. Like my parents adopted 2 kids from foster care that I'm just like, I might just want to wait until I'm late 20s, early 30s to where I've got the finances so that they can afford to have whatever lifestyle they want to live.
Hmm.
Like if they want to train to be a pro dirt bike rider, I'll have all the money for them to go out and train. If they want to be like in the Olympics, I'll have all the money if they want to train. Like whatever they want to do. Basically, I can afford to make them become the best with their potential. It doesn't matter what it is. If they've got a natural talent for something, just full on support that. And then the other thing is like with adoption, there's so many kids that need adopted that it's like I might just want to adopt because there's like I don't know if I want to get pregnant. that seems like that seems terrible, like going through all that pain. I don't know if I want to do that. And then the other thing is just like there's so many kids that need places to live, and it doesn't matter to me if they're blood or not. And then there's a whole bunch of other benefits that come with adopting. There's programs available to you. There's free health care for your kid if they ever get hurt. And then there's like stipends depending on the state. Like, oh, we'll help you pay for their food or whatever so that you can spend more money and time on like whatever they want to do. Like swimming lessons, gymnastics, like whatever. Like basically it just gives you more support from the state to be able to give your kids and yourself like be there with your kids, because the more support that you have, the more that you can support your child too, which just makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Because I grew up like my dad was always working, and I wish that I would have had my dad there around more. And you know, I definitely see that as something that I want to do in the future for my kids, and then just like give them the opportunities to like learn things young, see what they're good at young, so that they're not confused later on in life of what they want to do or anything. So Yeah, I mean, that's always something to consider too, is like having kids is expensive,
Yeah.
especially when they get to be older.
And especially when you're, I mean, shout out to all the people that are having kids at our age and are happy and
Yeah,
that's what they want to do. I mean,
yeah.
that's amazing, but that
Mhm.
scares the shit out of me for one, because
Yeah.
it's like, how do you, you have
How
to
do you
support,
balance
yeah,
it?
you have to support the kid, you have to
Yeah.
manage your time extremely efficiently
And I think
because
when it comes down to it, all you have to do is really love your kid. But like for my own, like
you have
I
goals.
have more strict like requirements of what I want to provide my kid, like what I expect from myself. Even though I didn't get it, like I want if I have kids, like I'm gonna have this set up for them
Mm-hmm.
so that they have the opportunities and stuff. Because that's just important to me. That just would make me happy. And it's like it's okay if you don't have all your finances sorted out and you're having kids anyways. Like as long as you love your kid, that's cool. I'm just saying, like for me,
Yeah.
I just want to pre-plan it out further for my kid. Yeah, which I would recommend everyone doing before they have kids. Like, okay, really think it out. Like, how much time are you going to be able to spend with them? Because most people, I don't think, are dreaming big enough. I mean,
What do you mean?
I think that most people have this typical dream of like, I want to have this stable job and like, I want to have this just, house and maybe two kids and like work just like my parents did and like maybe every summer go on a vacation somewhere. But for me, like the way I want to live life is I want to be financially retired basically. Like I have money coming in so that I can afford to take my kids to every country in the world if they want to. Like we can enjoy time together as a family and like that's basically what I'm sacrificing my 20s for is so that in my 30s my kids are going to be living life big. Like they're going to be not only like living life every opportunity is going to be there for them, but like the education along with traveling and just the fun that I'd have and like seeing my kids do that would make me happy. And that's just what I want, which I think, I guess it's subjective. Like, is that a bigger dream? Is it not? I don't know. That's just what I want.
No, I think that's a good plan. I think it's just, I think a lot of people don't have, again, back to I think a lot of people don't have the discipline to look 10 years ahead or 5 years ahead or a year ahead.
Just dream bigger.
Yeah.
Think bigger. Like, what is the best life that you can imagine? I mean, just think about that. Like, what is the best scenario for you? What is your highest, like, most energetic, happy, fulfilled self in 10 years? What does that look like? What is your dream? Don't give up on your dream ever. Figure out a way to get there and sacrifice to get there. And then think about your reasons why. Like, is it the community? Is it your future family? Is it yourself? Is it your freedom? Is it everything? And then just feed off of that because you can get there if you put in the work and if you create a plan, you can get there. It's slow and it sucks and you have to sacrifice a lot, but you won't be alone. You'll be with me.
And it'll be worth it.
And then we can go take our kids everywhere around the world together. It'll be fun if we have the same dream, but yeah, that's what I want to do. And I mean, the opportunities that you'll have in 10 years are going to be much more because I always want to progress. I always want to do better than I did the previous year. Your net worth, you always want to step it up every year if you can.
I think those are important. Those are important goals to have.
I mean, not to say that money is more important than like, other things. It is just something that impacts our life
Yeah, people say
so
money
much.
can't buy happiness, but it definitely alleviates a lot of stress.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes life, if you're living your life month to month worrying how you're going to keep the electricity on or a roof over your head like that, that's going to weigh on you.
Yeah.
and just having an extra $500 in income a month
Yeah.
can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it can. It's just that abundance that you'll have for more things in your life. Like, I listen to this video sometimes, and it's called Money is Just Energy on YouTube, and it's really good. It's like an hour-long podcast, and it's this guy who talks about how like really breaking down like the psychology of how to think about money as well.
Like in
Which,
what ways?
well, he talks about like some of the stigmas behind money. Like, have you ever heard it's easier for, what is it, like something like a needle and a camel and like heaven? Have you ever heard that analogy? Oh, it's like oh, it's easier to get a camel through a needle to heaven than it is for like a rich man to get into heaven. And it's something like that. I'm probably like butchering the quote, but it's basically going over a lot of stigmas about money, and then like showing that we've just been taught that in order to keep us suppressed. So it changes your whole mindset around like, oh, making more money is not bad. There's a lot of abundance in the world. And just having control over that abundance is not a bad thing. So it kind of resets like your subconscious. Because you have so much control over your own attitude, your finances. If you're not happy in life, it takes a lot of work to bounce back against that. Like mental health, there's so many people that are struggling with mental health, and it's because they're so consumed by so many negative aspects in life, and they're already preconditioned to go into negative. Like everyone is preconditioned to go into negative thoughts to a certain degree, but it's coming to like, well, how many resources do you have to combat that? And what do you do when you feel that way? And what do you watch? What do you listen to? That changes. Like, it just completely resets your mind to becoming more positive and on track and focused.
Well, there's like a weird ownership thing that comes into play, right? People would rather say, "Oh, I'm not where I want to be investment wise because I just don't have the time." But they don't want to say, "Oh, well, those 3 hours a night that I sit and watch Netflix, that might be why I don't have the time to,
Mm-hmm.
look at my portfolio or look at these companies that I want to invest in or work an extra 3 hours a night." Like there's a
Yeah.
weird, which I get it. I mean, working sucks. We all agree working sucks. Nobody, if you had the option to just have $1 million and not work, everybody's going to take that. But
Yeah.
it's,
Hurts your ego.
yes.
Hurts your ego if you say like, oh, I could have
Yes,
$1
it
million,
does. Yeah.
but I don't because of myself. That hurts
That's a
your
great way to put it. Yeah.
it hurts your ego. Like, I still struggle with that too. Like, okay, for the past year, I could have worked another job.
I
Why
think you're
didn't
doing it.
I?
You're eating a meal a day. I think
Why
you're
did
doing okay.
but why
I
didn't
don't
I
think
work
you
another
fall into that
job?
category with the rest of us.
But
You're
I
doing
do.
okay.
But I do, because why didn't I work another job? Like, I could have. I could be way further along than I am. I could be much more successful than I am. So what's holding me back? Is it because the only opportunity I had was to work a job that didn't fulfill my ego as much? Like, would I have to do something that, being a first responder is so fulfilling for me, but like if I wanted another job and the only thing available was, I don't know, like something that doesn't mean as much to me, like store
Cook it.
clerk,
Yeah,
or,
or cook at McDonald's.
like, yeah, something else, like, that's really, my ego is stopping me from progressing. And I admit that my ego stopped me. And what I'm trying to do right now is get another job. But like, if I realized that my ego was stopping me and that I had to take full accountability for me, thinking that my ego is like too, like, oh, I've got too many skills to like waste my time on this or that, when like you run the numbers and you're like, well, actually that extra income could set me ahead another couple years, even though it's like only a couple $1,000s a month. But if I invest that, this is how much it's going to compound into. And then you're just like, wow. And it doesn't really matter in your early 20s. No one gives a shit what you do. Like, you have the opportunity of living in a box if you want to. saving money because no one expects anything from you. But once you get into your 30s and 40s, people are going to be looking at you weird if you're living in a box, right?
Yeah, you can be a bum with 5 roommates in your
Yeah, no
20s,
one cares. It's the
eating ramen
norm.
every
It's
night.
the norm,
Yeah,
yeah.
but if you're 30 or 40 and you're still doing that, then
Then there's the like,
there's a stigma on that.
yeah, there is. So like that's something that we benefit from is like, oh, I could work anywhere I wanted to. Don't like, and it shouldn't even really matter anyways, but our egos have a lot to do with that. The accountability is hard to accept.
You seem like you're very in tune with yourself. I mean, you have these goals, you recognize what you need to do. You're talking about, stripping away your ego for that second job. I mean, it sounds like you have a very good grasp of who you are and who you want to be, more importantly.
Well, I think the only reason why I have a more clear picture now is because of so many mistakes that I've made in the past. I've been so broke, so like in poverty that I was just like living in situations that I didn't want to live in, and I was really struggling. And another piece of advice I have is do not invest with a person that you're in a relationship with. I actually went through this whole process with an ex boyfriend who at the time I was dating, and I put in like a lot of my own time and money into it, and then when that fell apart, I ended up losing a lot of money. So it just kind of shaped me into being more independent and not depending on like other people as much, and just learning through my harsh, expensive mistakes. Because, for some people it works out and that's great, but for others it doesn't, and you have to be prepared when it doesn't. And you never know, like, divorce statistics are so high. I don't even know if I want to have a partner with kids. Like, imagine, like, okay.
It's scary. No, I'm not laughing because I disagree. I'm laughing because I agree, and
So
it's
this
scary.
is one of the biggest drawbacks, I think. One of the scariest parts of having kids is just the shared custody part of it. Like, yeah, there's the worry of like, am I going to be able to spend time with this kid and afford it? But like, also, are me and this other person going to last? And if we don't, how messy is the custody exchange and dispute? And how expensive is the divorce? And how much am I going to lose? And statistically, divorce is so high. And like, you might never think that it would happen to you, but it could.
And you never really know what is going on in the other person's head.
Yeah,
Is
you
the scary
don't.
part. Like you guys,
Yeah.
you could think you guys are rock solid, and everything is perfect, and then
Yeah.
one day they just don't feel the same.
I mean, that's how it was with me the first time that I invested with somebody, and I was just like, oh, this is great. And then it ended up being just terrible, and I ended up just walking away from the situation at a loss. And I don't want that to happen to anybody else. Like, I don't want people to make the same mistake that I did to, and it's like, you don't wish that on anybody to happen, but I want people to be prepared for it if it does.
Did you guys like invest in a property together?
Yeah, we did. And so now my strategy is completely changed to like, before I get married, I want to have all my properties already bought on my own, and then get like myself secured that way. Unless I would get a prenup unless the guy that I met was equally
well off,
like self-disciplined and like did something else like to get to him, like,
had his own assets and was,
his own business
down
or
that
something.
same path. Yeah.
Like to where I wouldn't be risk of losing all of the energy that I put into the last 8-10 years or something. But yeah, you have to look at the harsh realities of that kind of stuff, unfortunately. And then there was another point I was going to bring up, like, just with custody of kids, too. Like, do I want to adopt before I, like, have a partner? Do I want to be a single mom? Like, this is such a unpopular opinion, but single moms, their kids love them so much more than... Like, think about like couples with moms and dads, and like how usually the kids favor their dad. If it's single moms, their kids like so in love with them, like their boys are just soldiers for them and stuff like that. And like, I don't know, that's just my own like biased like outlook so far. It's kind of a joke. I'm kind of joking, but Of course, I would want it to work out with somebody, but sometimes I just wonder, like, is that smart? Like, how sure am I that that's gonna work out? Because that's a big risk. Like, do I want to take the risk or do I not? Is it worth the risk or is it not? It's just one of those things that you have to weigh out. And
Yeah.
it seems like more of a risk when it happens to you. Like when you've already risked it and then it didn't work out, then you're like, okay, now I see how much I am actually risking.
You're a little more cautious.
Yeah. Yep. So that's something to consider too.
Mhm.
I apologize if I'm pessimist about this.
No, I think that's good. I don't think you're pessimistic. I think you're just being honest first off about your experiences, which is great. I always think that like people speaking from what they've gone through, I think that's how you really instill these messages in people because it resonates with people when they hear your stories, you know?
Yeah. I've had so many failures, and that is why I'm like this.
But they're not failures. You've learned from them. You might have
They were
experienced
hard.
losses.
They were
Yeah.
hard to go through.
Yeah, I
and
bet. But look at who you are now and look at what you know, they
yeah.
shaped you.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I guess so. I guess so. Any hardship that I've been through has made me do more with my time. I don't think I've really felt like a kid since I was in elementary school. That was the best time
Really?
ever.
I still feel like a kid.
Oh,
That's
no.
awkward. Oh no. Oh wow.
I mean, like I would like to feel more of that freedom and just like fun, happiness, like euphoria that I had when I was in elementary school. And I was so stress free and just having a good time, playing with friends and being more social. And then ever since middle school, I kind of like had this shift of like, oh, I have so much stress, and I think that's when kids kind of require more growing up too financially, and I think we just struggled so much with that I had to, I don't know, like come to the harsh realities quickly. So, yeah.
With like financial things with like your parents and stuff that happened in middle school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and just like other stuff too. Like some things have a really big impact on you, and then you get shaped from that. But every hardship that occurs, the more that you can come out stronger with it, and you can beat it. Like if I can come from the stuff that I've been through, then I think anybody can do it too. Cuz I'm not special. I'm not even very smart. I'm just like an average person that just looks for opportunities. That's it. So
You're
anybody
very
can.
humble about it all, which is impressive because your work ethic speaks for itself, but you being humble about it. A lot of people, aren't afraid to say, no, like, I bust my ass off. I'm freaking awesome. Like, I've earned this. Like, suck it. This is what I'm doing. And you're over here, you're just like, you could do it too. Like, here's a blueprint. This is my blueprint. This is the one I went off of, but you could find your own and
Yeah.
you could do this. And it's not hard. You just have to follow these steps, and anybody can do it.
Yeah.
I think that's a noble quality, and I think that's important.
Because the reality is that everyone has their own way to thrive. It's different for everybody. There's so many different types of personality, and everybody's got their own strengths that they can work off of. And like mine might be different, it might be similar, but I'm just trying to focus on that. So I think, I don't know. A lot of people are way more talented than I am, so I just look back and think I still have a lot of work to do, which is what I think everybody needs to do in order to keep pushing themselves, because the people that are full of ego aren't going to achieve their fullest self. If they have an inflated, telescope look on themselves and then look through a microscope at like other people, that's just the worst kind of person.
And when you get comfortable, you get complacent, which I think is important.
Yeah, you need to keep yourself in check too. Like,
Yeah,
just
like
like
if you were
I
like,
said,
"Oh, I
like,
reached it," I'm where I want to be. Like you'll lose your drive.
yeah, just like I said, like there's chapters in life, and you have to look at where you are in your chapter, because one of the most common things that I hear from people in their 20s around my age is just that they're trying to enjoy their time, and like they're trying to live life to the fullest, and they don't want to sacrifice. But this is the chapter of your life where you should be sacrificing the most. If you don't, then you're going to have to later. You don't want to do that later, especially after you've been having this big lifestyle. Like, you can't live like you're a millionaire in your 20s. I'm sorry, but you just can't. You can't. You have to build yourself to get there. You have to realize where you are. And there's a way to do it quickly if you put in the work to do it. The harder that you work at it, the sooner you're going to get there. But you have to put the work in to get there. So I think a lot of people get that messed up in their head because of their egos. They're like, oh no, like I can afford this big fancy dinner and like all of these luxuries, and I can afford like this brand new watch or like brand new stuff. But it's like, you gotta kind of put yourself in check. Like, okay, maybe later on in life you'll be able to and actually afford it and not worry about it or regret that financial decision. But early on, it's the most important to invest early up front. All of the wealthiest people that I know have invested into business and real estate. And what they did in the beginning was that they sacrificed the most in the beginning. They lived super frugally. They ended up, like, now they're living big lifestyles, but in the beginning they were just like, man, I'm putting everything into my investing. And what they typically say is like, I wish that I would have invested more up front, even though they were already giving so much. But they just think like, if I would have invested a little bit more with that compounding effect of either real estate or stocks or whatever it might be, it would go so much further because you have time on your side when you're young. The more that you invest up front, far less investing later on. So, yeah, I mean, like, also, if you ever have a question or if you ever want, like, numbers looked over on, like, mortgage loans or, like, something like that, there's so many people out there that will just answer your questions and save you hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially. And like, if you ask me, I'll answer it if I know the answer. I'll give you straight up like, oh hey, this interest rate is actually really terrible. You could get a 2% interest rate or 3% interest rate. So you should keep looking around, and just having that little bit of knowledge from somebody looking over it, if you're not quite sure, could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars to like millions, I guess, depending on what you're buying. But you can reach out to me, and if I know, I'll answer. And if I don't know, I'll be honest and tell you I don't know, and then refer you to somebody who might. But that connection of reaching out to people is so important. I started reaching out to more people just like online, people who have invested in real estate, home lenders. Those are my favorite people to talk to and ask advice. People that are in their both young and old, because you got to think old people had a different like environment around them investing up front. Our economics have changed to a certain degree. And so I like listening to them, but I also like listening to younger people who have made it pretty well off also by getting there slowly, like started in their 20s and now are doing really well in their 30s. So yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to ask anybody. Go to a lender and just be like, hey, I just have a few questions. I'm thinking about buying a house and I want to buy a house through you guys, but I need to know what I need to get in order for myself to be approved for a loan. And they'll tell you, they'll give you a checklist, and then that'll at least like set you up. They're just dreams until you write down your goals and then you see what you need to do in order to get there. And the more clear of a picture that someone has, the more clearly I can like lay out like, oh, hey, this is what you should do then in order to get there. Just depending on the person.
It's all about taking those incremental steps.
Yeah, reaching out to the right people, because you got to be careful from who you take advice from. I've gotten so much bad advice from people. And then I just look at like, okay, like they're really good at this one thing, like what they do for a living, or they provide so much emotional support or whatever. So like it's hard not to listen to them with their emotional support, but then at the same time, like you have to look at what has their knowledge base been. Are you talking to a professional, or are you talking to someone who might be trying to the best of their ability but doesn't really have the know-how or experience that you are looking for? So you reach out to those people who are, I mean, you just look at people who are doing super successful and you reach out to them for advice. People who are doing better than you. Like my parents, they ask me for financial advice now sometimes.
That's got to be a crazy feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know. It just depends on like people younger than you can have more experience in something. Or,
Yes.
they
I don't get that whole ageism thing of like, oh, I'm not going to ask this 18-year-old for advice because I don't want to seem like I don't know. It's like,
Mhm.
what?
I mean,
We're still doing that?
there are certain factors that you need to consider when you're taking advice from someone younger, like if they're like one of those millionaire overnight types of
Oh,
things.
yeah.
That's the thing you need to consider. But then at the same time, like if you have the know-how of like keeping a hold of your money or whatever it might be, then knowing how they got there in the first place is part of it. Going back to the three things, like earning money is step one. Like how do you get your income up? And then step two, saving, and then step three is multiplying it. Those are just three simple things you have to remember when it comes to finance. And the earning money, it's like YouTube, that's good. I really hope that your channel takes off. I think
Thank you.
I almost feel like with your studio, you have a lot of potential to do more. Like,
Oh, I'm branching.
like
I've got a couple ideas cooking in the
yes,
furnace.
like what are you planning on doing?
This is gonna sound kind of nerdy, but I'm gonna do a like a book review channel thing because
Oh,
I
okay.
think that in today's day and age, like we need to promote ideas that cause us to reevaluate our own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to read books that like make me challenge my own conceptions or like push me in a different light or force me to think about things in a different way. And whenever I'm reading a book, like I always want to talk about it with someone because I get wrapped up in it and then I start running with my own ideas. And it's like you want to bounce those off of somebody and see, hey, am I crazy for thinking this? Like, did you interpret that to mean this? Or how did you feel about
Yeah.
that? And I think doing this kind of book, it's not so much a book review, it's like just, it's almost like a book club. But I think
Mm-hmm.
doing that online and then like eventually if it could build up like a community where we talk about the books, like I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And I want to do like a gun page, which sounds kind of
Hey, I'm
ominous.
pro gun. That's
Okay,
cool.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think that would be cool. Like, I don't know, making some sort of like shooting videos or like, oh, we're going to install these optics or these new triggers and we're going to test them out and do
Oh
reviews
my
or
gosh,
something
I
like
want to be a
that.
part of both of
Yeah,
these.
you can. You can. We got to start doing this more than once a year because
Yeah.
I really enjoy having you on.
Oh yeah, that's I can give you that book. You can do that one eventually.
Yeah.
And then like shooting, there's a shooting range out in Hoopa. If you ever like make it out there,
Oh,
that's pretty
yeah.
cool. That's where I
I didn't
usually
know there was a
go.
range out there.
Yeah, that's where I usually go. It's nice. Um,
What do you shoot?
it just depends on like who's going with me, what they have. Like I just got rid of my Glock 40, and right now I have like a 12 millimeter. But yeah,
Oh, we'll
it's
have to go
fun.
shooting.
It's
I
fun.
didn't know there was a range out there.
Yeah, it's fun. And I mean, like I think the videos could also be. I think they're really educational. I think they are. Like that's a very important aspect. But then also, like the whole entertainment part, I also find for viewers does really well on YouTube. So maybe there's something that we can do to like make it more like I struggle, like I don't know how to make this more
I think it.
entertaining.
I think. I think it is entertaining. I think it's just about people finding it. Because I legitimately
Oh,
like. I thought all of that was interesting, and like I was gripping every word you were saying.
Was
Like
there
I wasn't
anything that you didn't know that you just learned?
like 99% of that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so you mean basically the whole
Okay.
conversation? Yeah. I
Okay, cool.
yeah. Yeah, 90% of that probably, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to like write it down on a whiteboard and like I don't know, just teach it to people. Cuz I've done so much research on this
It sounds like it. I mean, it's
and
easy
I
to
want to
tell that you're
learn.
well versed
I
on this
mean, I
stuff.
want to learn more, and sometimes the best way to learn is when people ask you questions and you don't know the answer, and then you're like, "Oh, that piques my curiosity. Now I can go learn about that." And then you can kind of like what I usually do is I look up multiple videos and watch multiple videos on it and get different intakes of like what this means, and then I find a middle ground of like, okay, well this is what it actually is, and I like check with people who like if it's about lending, then I check with my lender. Just be like, "Hey, I just have a quick question. Is this how this works?" So, do you have like any other questions about finance?
I I feel like we definitely got a good chunk of information in there.
Are you planning on buying a house?
Yeah, I want to. I wanted to before this year was over. We're gonna see if that happens.
Have you talked to a lender?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, cuz the process for me took a really long time from when I talked to a lender to when I found the house and
Mm-hmm.
closed, and it doesn't have to be that way for you, but I think typically it takes a while for most
So
people.
started early.
Yeah, like definitely get your foot in the door and go talk to a lender and be like, "Hey, like am I ready to buy a house if I found the house that I wanted?" Cuz you want to get pre-approved before you go like seriously looking at
Yeah.
houses. At least that's what people say, but like for me, what I do is I look online, and if something piques my interest and I'm like, oh, okay, this one I see myself buying, then what I do is I talk to a lender and I get pre approved, and then I talk to my real estate agent, and then I go through the process of running um, the property inspection and stuff on it. This market is super high in
It's
Eureka right
crazy.
now,
It's
and there's
crazy.
very few houses that I would recommend buying because I think that some of these houses are not on a good deal because you look at what the houses rent for, and if the potential earnings for rent is a little far less than what you're going to pay in mortgage payments, that's really not a
Yeah.
good
And these
sign.
houses are selling for way over the appraised value.
Yeah.
Like they're just buying. People are just throwing money at everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens cuz it's just crazy right now.
I mean, one thing that I wish I knew more about was these large scale investment companies that already have like hundreds of rental properties.
Have you checked into those at all? I've
How
heard
do
about
I
them.
invest into those and then just get my return?
Mhm.
Because that seems like the most passive way to do it. Seems
And
like,
you're not doing anything.
yeah, it
You're just
seems like less return, but I mean, I could open a business like that where I'm just like, hey, if you want to invest $5,000, I'll pay you $200 to $300 the rest of your life. Like, I could set up a business like that. Is there like, there's gotta be already like well established, large multi that aren't stocks, but that are just mainly just investing like purely through a smaller business itself.
I've been getting it's funny you brought that up. I've been getting ads about there's a couple companies that are doing that and I've been getting ads to invest in them through like Facebook and
Oh,
Google ads. Yeah, of like
interesting.
these conglomerates that are just buying up rental property all over the country. And it's
Yeah,
like I don't know, I haven't looked into it, but it piqued my interest of
because I don't think that investing in the stock market through, like, if you want to do real estate, but you don't have enough money to buy a house, or you just don't want to get involved with it, like, you don't want to be responsible for tenants and maintenance and stuff, and you don't want to deal with property management, then you can just invest into a small time, like, not on the stock market, but like a smaller company that's already established. because that's a win-win. That's a win for the business owner who's now expanding more, and it's a win for the people who invest. Like if I invested $5,000, would I get paid $200, $300 a month? Like that's what I want.
Yeah.
I would want to invest in them. But the thing is, if you go through the stock market, the returns are not good.
It's not great. It's a long
it's
play.
like, I don't know why. It's like, it just seems so different when you put it in the stock market versus like this other investing type that I'm looking at. And I want to find that, and I want to do that if that's available to diversify myself.
You could start one.
I would love to start one, but I don't know what the legal implications are of that. Like, what if I'm like, hey, I'm going to pay you $200-$300 a month for the rest of your life, and then like the returns aren't as good as what I promised or something? Like what?
Well, you could do it like a percentage base, and then it could fluctuate like if you're doing like an index fund, right?
Yeah,
where it's off the market.
Because there's so many opportunities. Like to buy your first house, you only have to put 3.5% down. And then you can use a conventional after that and only put 5% down if you move there. And then if you just buy it purely as an investment property, you have to put 20% down. And like that 20% down, you don't get as much cash on cash return because you have to save and invest so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually would be better if I just like bought a house, moved in it, lived there, and then had it work out to where like I live there for a year and then I move again and buy another house.
Fourplex, that would be, you could just live in one and have the other three play for it.
Yeah.
You know?
And then just keep doing that. I don't mind moving around for the next 10 years.
It's not a bad way to spend your time.
But California is such a terrible market because you also have to consider like not only are our taxes the highest here, there's a lot of people leaving California. And then on top of that, we have some of the most strict tenant laws, or landlord laws. So we're one of the least friendly landlord states. So if somebody is not paying rent on your property, or they vandalize the place, or the legal process to get them evicted takes so long compared to other states, and the process of like notifying them and then like taking them to court, and then the court system it's so much slower than other states. The process is completely different. So you also want to look into that when you invest in real estate. Like, is the economy growing or is it shrinking? California, it's shrinking. What are the landlord laws? Because there's a lot of states that are very landlord friendly. And what are those states? And then you want to look at taxes. What is the taxes for that area? Because all of that goes into this whole equation. And
it's all a factor.
If you're open to moving anywhere, like if I could just have a wonderful job and like I like Humboldt, but if I could just like change it to to fit the laws and stuff that I want, I would go like Midwest. And yeah. I mean, the cool thing about living in California, though, is that you get paid more than other states. So live like you're dirt poor in California, save as much money as you can, and then invest out of state because you have more money compared to the people in these other states, that you have the advantage of having more disposable income.
Do you think is that part of your plan to buy more property out of California then?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I would like to do. And that kind of just like, if I was more flexible and I wanted to live out of California, I think that for my business, it would make more sense. But I like where I live right now. And I think like my plan right now is pretty good. Maybe in like 10 or 15 years, I'll like move and buy a mansion somewhere in like the Midwest or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or build one. Or maybe I'll build one and
customize
like Neyland or something up there. I don't know. There'll be a lot of opportunities later on. I just have to be patient and then make those decisions. But I always have like a plan A, B, C, D, and E in case something fails also. Because nothing is sure in life, it seems like.
What are your contingencies? Like investment wise?
Uh, you mean like, well, what I mean by that is just like there's not a whole lot of security in anything.
In life.
At least with like where I'm at. Like yeah, I plan on working the like first responder type career the next 10 years. But there's so much that you can't control in life. Um I mean, I'll be honest, I've been fired from a couple places, which kind of made me more cautious of like trusting and that I'll have a job and stuff. To really like what I think was ridiculous reasons. Like I got fired one time just for reminding someone of someone they went to high school with. Just
What?
I've gotten demoted from being an officer to working in the office for being a young lady. I've gotten so much like just stripped for such odd reasons. And like they just straight up tell me like, "Oh, this is why you're getting let go."
They don't even try to hide it.
Yeah. And I'm just like shocked at how much you don't control with where you work. I mean, it might be a little bit different like if your dad is, you're the boss, like you probably have like more job security that way. But even that, like, I don't know,
Yeah, maybe I
you
get
get
fired
into a
tomorrow.
fight and like,
I just get a note. Don't show up for work tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's scary if you lose your job and then like, then what?
And it's scarier if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Like if you didn't have rental properties and if you didn't have
Mm-hmm.
these other assets
Mm-hmm.
and you're just living paycheck to paycheck and that paycheck stops.
Oh, one time I've already said two of the times I've been either fired or demoted. And then there was this other time that I was fired just for I was working a temporary position and I was filling that position, and since it was temporary, I was looking for a job after that one was over. This was at Coast Central. I was working there, filling in for somebody, and they told me like, "Oh, by November, we're going to have this person back. So you're going to have to go work somewhere else." So I was like, "Okay, so I'm going to look for another job." So I was looking for another job. I had an interview at the Humboldt County Courthouse, and they found out about the interview and then they fired me because of that. And I was just like, how does that make
What?
sense? Some of the things, like, I don't know if it's just like I am kind of a odd person, like maybe my personality doesn't mesh with people, or like I don't really know if like there's something else to it besides like these small things like looking I don't know. But it definitely adds up like a lot of caution for me, like someone could just fire you because they don't like the way that you talk or like your speech pattern or just like the way that you are as a person. People don't have to like you. That's normal for people just not to like you for whatever reason. Then you just lose your livelihood because of that, just for being who you are. And that's a scary thing.
It definitely feeds into that desire for self-reliance.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it's just my terrible luck that I've been like, okay, I have to do this way.
That is so weird that they would get... I mean, especially that one, they would get mad at you for looking for another job when they said, okay, this is first off, this is temporary.
Right. Doesn't it seem like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have a super high turnover rate there, which I think maybe is just from like the management. And like the other jobs that I've had have been super great. I don't want to seem like, oh well, my jobs are terrible. Like the job I have right now, I love it. The some of the jobs that I've had in the past, I've had a really positive experience with, and I don't have any complaints about. I just stopped working there because I needed to promote with wages. And so like, it really depends, but I've definitely been in that situation where I feel that pressure and like that stress when you get let go of or demoted for something like that, and then it causes so much like stress that
Yeah.
you don't want to feel that, So
Yeah, because it makes you realize you really don't have that control, like you
yeah,
were saying.
I mean, what would you do if you got fired tomorrow?
I'd be fucked. Well, I wouldn't be fucked because I have I have a bit of an emergency fund for
Yeah.
life.
That's why emergency funds are important, because you never know what's going to come up. That's why having your own side business is important, because you can fall back on that. You don't want all your eggs in one basket, because that's really risky,
Yeah.
because it's not even your basket. You know what I mean? It's like you're just,
Somebody
in
else is holding
somebody
it for you.
else's
Yeah.
space, and you're just relying on that for your entire life. That seems risky to me. And, having an emergency fund, making money on the side of that through, real estate investing, Airbnb, like something, stocks. I think if I count all of my sources of income, I've got my main job, my first house, my second house, Airbnb that I add additionally on my other house, and then I've got stocks making me money. And I want to have more sources of income, just so that I don't have to feel that like stress of something fell, one of the plates fell, and now I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Like these other things are going to take care of me still. I don't have to ask anybody for money. I don't have to be homeless. I've got my own situation figured out. So that's yeah.
That's good. That's important. I hope that people hear that and it sparks something inside of them to do the same. Because it is, I mean, living your life just off a 9 to 5 and then getting wasted on the weekends because you hate your job and
Mm-hmm.
never changing anything is a reality for a lot of people, and it's scary.
Yeah.
That kind of life is scary.
Yeah. Well, what I need to tell, I feel like you need to hear this.
Uh-oh.
I feel like you need to hear this.
Uh-oh.
Is that I want you to I don't want you to fall into that. I want you to because if you don't have a set plan of like investing and finding your way out of that, then you're never going to get there. And it does take sacrifice in the beginning. And so that's what I think that you need to do is just.
Oh, I definitely need to come up with a plan because I'm out here
Yep.
I'm not floating.
Like, don't even move.
But I'm not grounded.
Like, don't even move, because that will cost you in the end too. And any decision that you make right now when you're young is so much more impact on your life than if you were to make it when you were older.
What do you think that comes from, where we've created this idea that you can kind of just piss away your 20s and then work in your 30s and somehow it's going to come together? Because it wasn't like that, right? In the generation before us, they worked.
I think for the people like my peers that are living like that, they just in my own mind, like some of the people that come to mind are people who don't have that stress of worry of like
Financially.
I've got to provide, because there's still, there's so much help that they receive from their family, which almost stunts their growth, because they have such a comfortable fallback with their families that they don't see any reason to do anything more, and that they can just live life to the fullest. And a lot of times their parents encourage it. It's like their parents are wanting them to go out, and the wealthy families that they want to give their kids what they never had, but then at the same time, that's how you fall into like that. By third generation, they're not going to have anything.
You can cripple them.
Yeah, they are crippling them by giving them too much support. And my parents were really tough on me, and I think that's why. And they also just didn't have a lot of the resources. So, I mean, that kind of made me figure it out. And I think that too much support can actually hurt. And that's where that idea, I think, comes from for a lot of people. Not all, but I think for a lot of people, they just, it's a positive and a negative at the same time, like depending on their situation. If they never have to worry about money again and their parents are just super rich, then, maybe they'll live their whole life like that. But then their kids who knows? Maybe it just depends on like how wealthy the family is. But for a lot of these people that I know, they'll probably run out just because I like know what
You
I
know
don't
what
know.
that path leads to.
Yeah, I don't know everybody's finances, but like I think just by guessing what the family business or what like the occupations are in the family, like okay, they're well off, they're doing good, but they're not like that good that they're gonna have like 3-4 generations worth of wealth.
Yeah.
But maybe they do. I don't know. But yeah, I think that kind of kind of is the reason why. Do you think of anything else? Like why that would be? Would it be pressure from like those other kids that are living that life? Like you want to hang out with your friends that are living that
I think
lifestyle
that
and then
plays
you
into
end
it.
up spending more money.
And I think social media, I think it definitely plays a role in that. You know, you see your friends going out and having fun every weekend, and it's like, well, I want to go do that. Like, I don't want to. You get that FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. And
I
it's like,
think that I deleted most people on social media, so I don't
that's
really
so
see that.
healthy. I need, if I didn't have to, this is what I tell myself. If I didn't have to like post promo for like the podcast, I would delete it all.
So no, but there's actually a really positive way that you can use social media. Like on Instagram, especially, there's so many like business pages that instead of every time you go on Instagram, you're looking at like, this FOMO stuff, like, oh wow, this vacation, like all these really affluent, wealthy people are like going out and doing all this stuff. And then you feel that like, oh, I want to do that. But you really have to know yourself, like, is that going to benefit you? Are they really your friends? Like, are these people that maybe you shouldn't be connecting or following for right now? Like, should you just be focusing on yourself right now? And for me, I just figured I need to focus on myself, and so I'm just gonna like unfollow a bunch of these people, even though they're good people. I'm just gonna unfollow them so that I can focus, and then I'm just gonna like put in a bunch of investing advice, and like they have pages for like all that stuff, so now every time that I go on, I'm like learning something every day. And it comes at the price of like, oh, I don't really know what these people I went to high school with are doing, which
But
is
do you need
okay
to, yeah, do
because
you
I don't
need to
even
know?
connect with them anyways.
Yeah.
If our paths cross in the future, that's great. Then maybe like I will become friends with them in the future. But like, what benefit is it right now for me, who's just like an acquaintance that just kind of like isn't providing anything educational for me?
Yeah, why do you need to see a picture of them at the beach
What,
or
like, if they're my friends, okay, but like if they're just somebody that, oh, millionaire lifestyle, la la la, like, okay, I don't really,
yeah.
it's not really benefiting me unless they're like telling me, like, oh, this is how I did it, or, like,
Yeah. It's all about the content that you're looking at, what you're
mm-hmm.
consuming.
Yeah. And so you can choose to make your social media super educational and positive. And anything that you search on social media, the algorithm is going to pick up. So that's why some people fall into this really negative hole, because our mindsets are programmed to be so negative most of the time. And then we're thinking like, a lot of girls with like eating disorders or something, they're like searching pictures of certain body types or this and that. And then that's all they're seeing on social media. And then it becomes really unhealthy, because that's whatever that you put into it, it's going to magnify. But if you are putting into it only positive things like investing or like business or like charity or whatever you're interested in that you're passionate about, it's just going to like magnify that. That's why social media is a double-edged sword, because you have to understand how it works. And that's why some people are like, oh, all social media is bad. Well, like, no, it's actually just like the way that you're using it is magnifying your own insecurities or your own negativity. And it's just using that because that's what draws your attention, is you're feeding into the negative things. But if you have enough self-control to just only focus and like tune in on these really positive things that are going to benefit you, that will benefit you as a whole. And like, there's a lot of resources out there on social media that you won't find as easily just searching the internet. There's additional information. So I'd say that it can be a really positive tool.
It's all about how you use it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like YouTube, right? You could spend 4 hours watching flat Earth theories
Yeah.
and just have achieved nothing, or you could watch people lay out financial plans or talk about, investing tips or how
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
how to write up a goal list and how to take incremental steps to achieving that. I mean,
Mhm.
there's it's great because there's so much content, and it's also bad because there's so much content you can just get lost.
It's almost like that whole self-control thing again.
Yeah.
With how much self-control do you have? Can you control your finances? Can you control what you're looking at? Can you control what you're searching? Can you control your mindset from slipping into that negative, like, oh, I can't do this, or like, whatever it might be? It's just that self-control that really kicks in that some people just don't even know where to start yet, I guess.
I really the In doing this podcast in a weird way, and just as I get older, I'm really convinced that the only way you're ever going to achieve anything is through discipline. Like if
Yeah.
you're just not a disciplined person, like that's really the first step. Before you do anything, you have to become disciplined, or you're never going to get close enough to your goals. It's just
Mhm.
not going to happen.
Mhm.
Because I mean, you have to be able to commit and to focus. And so many people struggle with focusing, myself included sometimes,
Well,
it's hard.
commitment and focus, I think, come from being so sure. You have to be sure. And to be sure, you have to do a lot of research.
Yeah.
So, like, do as much research and be as knowledgeable on something that you can. Like, if you're interested in joining the military, research the shit out of it.
My thing, my
What military?
the only thing holding me back is I would be very, and I'm not like idealistic about it. I was, because I thought, I do think the military is important, and I think those people are better than me. I think if you have, how many people, it's like 1% of the population that is even interested, and
Mhm.
it's like they're shouldering the weight of all of us. And I think
Mhm.
that's noble. But I have no misconceptions about the fact that I don't think the government gives two shits about anyone in
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
It's you have to get out of it what you put in a weird way. So like the skills and the tools that you're learning
Well, it
has to be
really
enough.
depends on the person on if it's a good idea or not logically.
Mhm.
It sounds like there's more of an emotional aspect for you that you respect and that you have emotion towards that. And that is good. You want to be emotionally in tune with it, but then at the same time, you want to have a logical outlook on it. See, for me, I almost joined the military as well when I was fresh out of high school. I wasn't sure what my options were. It was either join the military or get enough scholarships to try out this whole college thing. And so just me getting the scholarships is what allowed me to take that path. But I kind of wish that I would have just went with the military anyways now, because I am working in a first responder field, which would have been way more beneficial for me. Having that experience and practice in the military would have been long term better off. But anyways, it just depends on like what your situation is, because for me, when I was looking at it, the military provides it provides a good retirement plan. I know a lot of people who have great retirements because of their time that they did in the military. If you get injured, it's like you get even better benefits. I've had a couple friends who have medically retired from the military that still get monthly checks coming in every single month. So it's almost like, wow, they got hurt, but then at the same time, like that injury in the military ended up being a lifelong asset, almost like, as twisted as that sounds. It allowed them so much more financial freedom that, and like their injuries, one of them was one of them's doing like perfectly healthy fine. The other one's actually doing perfectly healthy and fine now too, so they're both fully recovered. But I mean, that hardship kind of ended up giving them so much more in return. And then they have a VA home loan, which is good up to a certain amount, something to look into that can help you financially. But then you also have to consider what are their wages.
Not
How
great.
much control do you have while you're in the
Not
military?
great.
Especially what branch? Like,
Hmm.
all of these things are such big factors. Yeah, because you might just be like, oh, I want to join the military because I'm going to get training in this one field. Well, it just depends on like what branch of military you're talking about. And I had one of my friends that joined the military, and the recruiter wasn't honest with them about what their opportunities were, and they told them, oh yeah, you're going to get this job, but then it ended up not being, like, they didn't have that opportunity. So
Yeah.
definitely got to do in-depth research on that before you sign up.
Yeah.
And then think about your opportunities that you have outside of the military too, because it sounds like you've got a lot of opportunities here. Like, how much are you able to save every month? If you don't mind me asking, like, we can cut this out if you don't want to put this on the video. I completely understand.
I can tell you off the podcast. I mean, if we're gonna get into it, I'm still living at home. I moved back after college, so I'm living with my parents. So my overhead is very low, and I take a portion and invest, and then I take a portion and use it for studio equipment. Those are my only two expenditures right now.
Have you claimed any of this as a tax write-off yet? Because
Nope.
this is all tax write-offs.
Nope.
You'll get all your money back. You need to talk to a tax.
I should definitely look into that.
Yes, you need to talk to a tax accountant like tomorrow, and you need to be like, hey, I have my own YouTube channel, and like it's just taking off, but like I spent all this money on equipment, and this is going to be like a side business. What do I need to provide in order to write it off? And then they'll tell you, like, you need to do that.
I should do that.
That'll get you a lot of your money back. And then with your specific situation of living at home and not having to pay rent, like, you're still in that super fortunate situation.
I'm still like a baby. I'm basically a small child over here.
You just like have the opportunity to save so much money. You should be saving at least $20,000 a year.
It's that discipline of, I mean,
you should be saving at least $20,000 a year. And I mean, if you save that in 1 year, by next year, there's a lot that you can do with that for investing. I mean, you could, if you took the next if you just lived at home for the next 3 years, you save $60,000, you could just buy a house outright and never have to pay mortgage. I'm not saying that that's what I would do, because there's actually a benefit in leverage, but I'm just saying, like, so you understand how much of a benefit that you have.
Yeah.
That is like an opportunity for you. But if I were in your shoes, I would save at least $20,000 first year, and then keep my expenses super low, make as much money as I can, and then invest all of it. And what I did is, while I was saving, I invested a lot of it into the stock market, and I did research on stocks so that money could multiply quickly, and then I sold when they were high so that I get even more return for when I go and buy a house. But also, be aware that when you go and buy a house, you can't pull out all your money out of the stock market right away and then like go buy a house. You have to have it in there for at least 2 to 3 months. Because if you try and get a loan for a house and then the bank looks back at your bank history and they're like, oh, what's this deposit for $14,000 in your bank account? That's going to be flagged and they're not going to give you a loan.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They want to show that consistent, like, this is your paycheck, this is what this is from, and like no other additional things. Like, people who just have cash laying around at their house, terrible. Do not do that, because if you ever want to get a loan, you cannot use any of that money for a loan. The banks will not accept it. You have to put it into the bank account like 2 to 3 months in advance, and then they don't look back that far. That's why.
So 2 to 3 months is the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I did was I like took all my money from the stocks and I sold it when it was high, and then I left it in there for 2 to 3 months, and then I looked for a house. Once I was like, okay, Now
So,
it's like coming together. All my ducks are in a row, and I can just focus and do this.
mhm.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were you. Are you
It's
good
just
at
that
stocks?
discipline.
I mean, it depends on if you're good at stocks too.
I knock on wood. I haven't lost money yet.
Okay.
So, but I'm not. I got back into it. Well, into it the first time actually. Um, Back when like COVID was first hitting. So off that first dip, I got in, and then I
Uh-huh.
got scared. It like got really high, and I got scared, and then it started to dip a little bit. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna pull out, and then I bought this book. I can't think of the name of it. It's an investing book. It's really dense, and I think it's by Graham Hancock,
Huh.
with like a foreword by Warren Buffett or something. Great book. Really great book. Super thick. It's a long read, but it's all about investing in it. I mean, this guy's made a ton of money
Mhm.
investing, and I was like, oh wow, I just fear sold off my first buy. Okay, let's try this
Yeah.
again. So I
Yeah.
wrote it, and yeah, I'm not. I don't know if I'm great at it, but I'm not just throwing my money around
Well,
willy nilly.
like my whole strategy is what formed what I invested in.
Hmm.
So I was short term, like 1 year. I was like, okay, I'm just going to have this in for 1 year. So that's really going to impact what I choose. So I went super bullish in Tesla because Tesla stocks were just like, that was the best time to invest in Tesla.
Yeah.
And then Tesla dropped, and then now it's like all over the place. So I did the right thing. Um, But yeah, it really depends on like long term. I would say invest in Bitcoin. I think that is super undervalued right now. Short term, I'm not really sure what I would recommend short term because I haven't gotten really back into the short term investing quite yet. But when I do, I'll let you know and why.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I would recommend doing. And then just like having that, like for you, if your issue is saving, because obviously, you're making money and you live at home, so you don't have like the overhead, like bills. If the issue is saving money, I would say this is going to be a lot of discipline and like just what are you spending money on and like, but what I did in the beginning was I got a checkbook. I didn't even use it to write checks. I just took like that little like they have like this little chart when you first open it where you write down all of your expenses, and I just wrote everything that I spent money on to the last like bagel that I bought. I wrote down everything, and then that kind of made me spend less money, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't really know if that'll work for you because everybody's so different, but that's what I did just because I know myself. So, like, I mean, really, the answer might be in yourself. Like, what do you think that you could do to make yourself more disciplined? That'll work.
I'm I'm fairly disciplined. I'm not as disciplined as you. We're on two different levels. I'm way lower, but I don't go out
Like, how often do you go out to eat?
pretty rarely. Like I
Okay,
don't even
that's good.
yeah.
That's
I got
good.
all my partying and that kind of energy out while I was still in college. So like I'm pretty low key about everything now.
Okay.
I really the only thing I spend money on is the podcast at this point and gun stuff, which guns can get pretty
Oh, those
expensive, which is
can
I
get
know
really
I picked a bad
expensive.
time to get into a gun hobby
Oh,
because
ammo
it's
right now is so
well
expensive.
I reload my own ammo, so I save a little bit of cash there, luckily, but it's I mean not really because then you
How
just shoot more.
often do you how often do you go to the range?
Um, not I haven't been that much these past couple weeks just because I've been trying to
Okay, not
get
bad.
this going,
Not bad.
but ideally it'd be like once or twice a week,
So,
which is expensive.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean there's like a certain level of like, you want to have fun, but
It's that
the
discipline.
main goal that you should be thinking is all of my hobbies, like how can I get my assets to pay for my hobbies so that I'm not using any of my check to go
Hmm.
and spend on this. So you really want to be like, okay, what if I don't do this unless for business purposes for the next year? And then I go and I buy a house, and then I use the cash flow from that to help fund my hobbies. That's like how I look at it.
That's the mentality everyone should have, right?
Yeah.
Is using assets to pay for
Liabilities. Your own personal liabilities, yeah. Because you only get a certain amount of money when you take home from work, and like, your hobby, you could easily turn that into a side business though.
I gotta start that gun page. I gotta
And
do
then
that.
guess what? Your ammo and your guns tax
Oh,
write
right
off.
off. Oh man, that's what I need.
Yes.
Oh man, now I gotta start it just so that I can say, okay, I'm shooting so that I'm trying to make
For
something.
your business.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
just
the
trying
difference
to...
between like poor class people and wealthy, like upper class people, is just like wealthy class writes off their hobbies in some way, shape, or form, just like that.
Yeah.
They claim it as a business, or like they make it into a business, and they end up not having to pay for it. They write it off on their taxes, or that sort of thing. Where like the poorer class people, they just pay all of that out of pocket.
Yeah.
They don't see any of it back. So if you really want to like get down to it, you could just do it that way.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah. I guess now I'm starting another page. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's the it's all about, I mean, we keep saying it, but it's all about that discipline.
Uh-huh.
Like, it really is and it's not that simple, but it is. Like, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Just save more than you spend, try to cut back on your spending, and go on the offensive. Buy something that's going to produce you money.
Yeah. And most of the people that I talk to about this, like, they say, oh, well, my mental health, like, doesn't allow me to push myself to that point. And I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I don't study brains. But I struggle myself, but I also know how to push past it, because everybody has things that they don't want to do. Everybody goes through periods of like rough patches in their life, but you have to push past it, and that's where the discipline comes in. But you don't want to push yourself to a breaking point. And sometimes what that takes is knowing that you're not alone, and that there's other people out there who have done it and survived, and how they survived. And that's where it's like so important to find people who are on the same path as you. That way you don't break. That way you stay mentally strong. And so that's what I tell people, and they're just like, oh, well, like, it's mentally draining for me to show up to this job that I hate. I'm just like, hey, like, I understand, like, I've been there, like, other people all started out that way. I'm gonna be there again. Like, I'm still, like, there's still days that you just struggle, that sometimes you just need that, like, I'm not alone feeling to push yourself past that breaking point to keep going. But it's different for everybody at the same time. Like, I do what I can to help people pass that, because that is something that a lot of people struggle with, is their own mental health during this chapter of their life where they're just like, work, no breaks, keep working, keep saving, like, don't treat yourself, keep doing this and that. Like, it's hard. Like, don't spend a whole lot of time with your friends and family. Like, that all is mentally draining on you. But it also builds you at the same time. And that's something that you need to remember. But yeah. Anybody who is listening to this, like, I know how mentally draining it is. And so just like, you're not alone, and you can talk to other people who have been through the same thing, and then get support from them that way, if they have time to like really connect with you. Come, like, I will be there for you as much as I can to my ability. That's what I'll say. Because I'm still like struggling myself, but like, I also recognize that there's people out there who need a little bit of help, and I can help them, so I will try.
Do you try to squeeze in like a day here and there where you do just kind of let yourself take a breath? Or are you pretty focused about it's gotta be continuous?
So what I do for like traveling vacations now is that I will wait until somebody books my house as an Airbnb that'll more than pay for my vacation.
Oh,
And
that's a
then I
good
can
plan.
relax. That way my assets cover my liabilities, right?
Yeah.
So I'm renting out my house. I do a little bit of work. I earn it by like making sure my house is spotless, moving all my personal items out to my shed. Kind of like I have the same setup like my house, and then I've got a shed. And I move all my personal items in the shed, and then I get it all ready for Airbnb. Like I leave them a nice little note, and then I leave, and then I'm getting paid while I'm on vacation. And so that's kind of like how you can hack it. Like you can house hack it to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go to Reading for the weekend and have a hot tub and a pool and like maybe go skiing or something. And
And somebody else is paying for
somebody
it.
else is paying for it.
That's the goal.
But you got to like think of the steps like that.
Yeah, see, I'm still at that first step where it's I'm paying for it.
Yeah.
Not as much fun.
Yeah,
It's
not
not
as much.
fun.
No, it's not.
I think having somebody else pay for it would be a little bit nicer.
Or just figuring out, like, I still consider that like me paying for it at the same time because I had to do all the work to
Yeah.
set that up. So I had to, like, first of all, invest in the house, and then I had to work on getting the house ready for an Airbnb, like, quality style of house. And then I have to wait and be patient for the person to, like, book and, like, for all that to work out. I did have to work for it, but now it's like not as hard as if I were to have to save and take that from my paycheck.
Yeah.
It's a lot better to like use that money to pay for my vacation than the other way around.
And you set the foundation for that.
Yeah, it's all
mean-
about setting that foundation. And the
Yeah.
more foundations that I set, the better off I'm going to be later on in life. Like I already see the compounding effect of just freedom that I'll have,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. I'm only at like step 2 out of like 20. So
But you took that first step.
the first one's the hardest though. So like everything's looking positive, I guess, right now.
Well, that's good.
Fingers crossed.
I'm excited. I'm really like I'm a big fan. I'm excited to see where you take this because I mean the sky is the limit. You definitely have the discipline to achieve.
Thank you. I really appreciate when people are supportive of me also because I have a lot of haters out there. Like I have like a whole group of people that hate me. I don't know why.
What?
I don't know why.
Why?
um
What?
I don't know.
Clearly, those people aren't busy enough with their lives.
Yeah,
They
like,
gotta get another job.
Yeah, I have a lot of internet trolls, like people that have made fake accounts to say hurtful
Trying to be you?
things. No,
Oh, just
they
talking
make fake
shit.
accounts to talk shit on my account, and I've had like people do that to me.
Do you want a water or anything? I
Sure.
totally forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's water. There's beer. I have a full little bar here.
My voice isn't usually this kind of scratchy.
Did you want just a water?
Yeah, thanks.
I'm sorry. I have that there so people could I need like a little sign that says just take whatever you
No,
want.
no, it's no worries. I woke up with like a sore throat, so. But anyways,
Your
yeah.
haters.
I have like a whole bunch of haters that, yeah, they're pretty vocal and like, they always keep track of what I'm doing, and I don't know if I should just block them or I don't know why I haven't blocked them. I guess I just kind of like having haters. Like I don't mind. I guess I shouldn't say I like it, but I don't mind having people there push me even more. Because I use their energy for like positive things.
Are you reading their comments?
Yeah.
Oh no.
I read their comments
Oh
and
no.
I'm just like, okay.
You gotta just tune that out.
But it's also kind of good because it humbles me even more.
Yeah, but that's what people say, right? And I am a big fan of helpful criticism. Like if someone has a critique and it's valid, like I appreciate that because you can get delusional sometimes in your own space. But people that don't know you trying to critique you, it's like that's like having a homeless person scream verbal slurs at you. It's like that doesn't do what are we doing here? Like I'm not going to just they don't know you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it hurts the most when they're people that you went to school with that have an idea of who you are. And
Yeah, but they don't know
then,
you now.
like, yeah, that's true. But yeah, a lot of my haters
Are they from
is in
people from high
Humble
school?
that like knew me from high school. Yeah. It's like I have a fan club, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
What?
that's also something that you struggle with sometimes when I don't know, just like when you put yourself out there
Yeah.
cuz people are not going to like you. I don't blame them for not liking me. I don't. There's a lot of things that I can improve on,
I
and
don't think it's that
that's
they
fine.
don't listen. If these are people from high school that are just doing this, I don't think it's that they don't like you. They're probably mad that you're out here doing something
That
and they're
can be
not.
part of it too.
Yeah.
Like jealousy can be part of it.
Yeah. Because
Um
why? What? Like, what? I'm struggling over here because it's like, why? First off, why? Just why? Like, why are they?
I mean, you've never had someone not like you for no real reason at all, but they
I
just don't like you.
probably, but I
Yeah.
don't. I wouldn't associate. If they don't like me, I'm not gonna just hang out with them. Like, if they made it clear that they don't like me, I would just be like, okay, I'm not gonna be around you. Like,
Yeah.
I don't try to force things in my life. Like, if someone's like, if I'm getting
Well,
a bad vibe or they're getting a bad
it's
vibe,
not
it's
like I'm forcing anything. It's just like they are kind of with like going on my page.
which is why, why
I guess you've just
get
never
a
had
job,
I
do
guess you
something.
I guess you just never had someone like dislike you to that extent.
I guess not. I don't have haters yet, thankfully,
Yeah,
or
that's not
unthankfully.
a
Yeah.
I mean,
Maybe the podcast is still a little too small for my haters to come out of the woodworks.
once you say something that someone disagrees with, they're gonna
I'm
be
surprised
like,
because I've said a lot of wild shit on this podcast, and so far we've. I mean, I did have one video pulled off of YouTube, but that wasn't for something I said, so I'm gonna count that as a win. And I think
Mhm.
like
But
that's all
just
part of the
like
process.
it'll be yeah, it'll probably happen. The It will happen like if you really grow, and that's okay.
I'm sorry that's happening. Don't take whatever they say to heart. Like
Like
don't even read
I
it.
appreciate them, and I also really appreciate the people that are positive towards me because I have a lot of people that are like, "Wow, you're doing so good. Like you're motivating me," and that really is nice to hear too. But
You motivate me. I feel like I
overall,
need to get my shit together after talk. Like
you do need to
I
get your shit together.
gotta. See, this is why we have to
Okay.
talk more than once a year. We gotta.
So I mean, how long have we been out of high school? 6 years?
Yeah. Wow.
How much have you done in 6 years?
Not enough.
I mean, one of the problems that I also see is that people are like, "Oh, well, I'm so young," and you are to a certain degree. But
I
if
feel
you've been
old.
out of high school for 6 years, you've had a lot of time to make progress in life. You've had a lot of time to invest in yourself. You've had a lot of time to get up off of your feet or off your butt and on your feet. You've had time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what have you done that is, I mean, this is harsh to hear, but people need to hear it, is what have you done the last 6 years? For people that are like our age that have been out of high school
No, it's
and
a real
had
thing. You need to
control.
have that self reflection
Mm-hmm.
and be able to face yourself in the mirror and be like, am I really doing enough?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I being kind of lazy?
Mm-hmm.
Am I talk That's the big thing,
Am
right?
I
Talking about my
talking?
goals, or are you
Yeah.
actually
Are you
trying, because
doing
everybody's
it?
got goals. Everyone
Yeah.
can talk for hours about what they want to achieve, but are you actually trying to achieve that? Are you
Mm-hmm.
taking the steps?
And you can really tell more about yourself with your actions than your words. So look back at the 6 years, like who are you really?
I have no idea who I
Like, have you had a
am.
vision? Did you have a vision and complete it? Did you have a vision and try? Like, those are the questions to ask yourself. Because vision is super important. Don't get me wrong, like, vision is more important than someone who has money. Because with vision, you can multiply money, you can multiply success, you can achieve things if you act on them. But you need to act on them. And so, like, how much have you acted on those things?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you need to focus on like where are you going?
I feel like a compass that's on one of the poles just spinning in a circle, like, what are we trying to do here?
Well, okay.
Uh-oh,
With my
oh,
with
shit.
my with my like dream, does that sound good to you?
Financial freedom? Oh, yeah.
Does like does
Listen, I'm
traveling
definitely taking notes from your play.
just
Like,
like is
I'm...
that something that you would be just thrilled to have that lifestyle when you're 33, to be financially independent, have cash flow, be able to take your family on a vacation, maybe like, as much as you want to, really? Does that sound good? And if that sounds good, if that's something that you want, then why not go on the same path? You can copy me. I don't care. Like, go ahead and do it, and I'll help you, because there's enough to go around for everybody. Like, I'll help you. It's just like you have to commit and really decide to do that. And just by like you having your podcast is already a step in the right direction, because you're already opening up to so many different ways that you can center your life. Like, you're hearing different inputs from so many different people.
Oh, yeah.
So you really get to learn from people with vast different experiences that'll help you decide what you want to do. And if somebody's lifestyle seems the best to you, like their plan, and you're not really sure what to do, then like just do it. Just do what you think is drawing you. It doesn't have to be what I'm saying. It could be what somebody else is saying, but you need to have vision and decide, and then start moving towards that.
Yeah, it's easy to just float and not be grounded in anything, I guess.
Yeah, and there's like, do you understand the YouTube algorithm? Do you like know how that works yet?
No, not enough to really, no.
So that's something that you should learn also up front.
That and SEO, which I'm still not
because
versed in.
this could be a huge thing for you if you learn how the algorithm works. There's certain, I haven't really deep dived into it. I've only done a little bit of research on it, but there is a lot about how long your videos are, on if it'll pick up and show on recommendations. There's like how frequently you're posting. Like, there's a pattern. If you post like every week consistently with like a certain length of video, like that'll pick up on the algorithm, and that'll get you more views, and then you can't get monetized, and then you can make a bunch of money off of it. So there's like little things that you might want to know that'll really, like, you could even make this a career if you really deep dived into it and decided like, hey, I'm fully committed. I'm gonna do the work. I'm gonna release a video every other day, or like twice a week or something. And yeah, you can do that outside of your job too. You could do that after work, have people come here, be like, okay,
That's what I do. I clocked out right
this,
before we came on.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So
I was
like,
working, I ran home, changed, so I wouldn't be
so it sounds like
disgusting.
all
but
you need is like to know
it's
the
discipline.
algorithm.
It's discipline to research the algorithm, which
Yeah.
I should have done. Haven't done. I barely got the thumbnail situation looking a little cleaner. But that's
what I suck on. I don't even know how to make the thumbnail.
I make them and I'm like, this, like, I don't know, is this like something somebody would want to click on when they see it? But it's like, I definitely need to look in it. It's all discipline. Like,
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Because I could be doing 2 of these a week.
Having the curiosity of like, how can I make this better?
Yeah.
And then watching it, and you choose that over watching Netflix. Top recommendation.
That's the key.
I spend so much time watching YouTube videos on like education stuff. I don't even really watch like Netflix or anything. I'm kind of out of the loop on like most of these TV shows and movies and stuff, because I'm watching these things that I'm curious about.
But you get back what you invest your time in.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you invest all your time in Netflix, you're not really going to get anything back.
Yeah.
But if you invested in educational videos or things that just motivate you.
The
like
really cool thing about this whole office too is that your environment changes from like your home to like your office, and that itself kind of resets you. So if you just come here and you focus and you only do research, like for your podcast, you only do podcast stuff in here, that'll already, like, I think, give you an energy that when you come here, you're focused.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know. That's how it
yeah.
works for
No,
me.
that's completely true.
Because when I'm at home, sometimes I get more distracted than I am like when I'm in an office setting.
Yeah. That's why I think moving it out of the kitchen, I think, is where we had ours
Yeah.
that first time. Moving it out of there was the best thing I could have done
Nice.
because you're home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so then you do it and it's like, oh, well, I can just edit this later. Like, I've got time. I might as well watch some Netflix or play video. Like, do whatever you want to waste your time on. Like, do
Mm-hmm.
that instead of, whereas if it's here, it's like, okay, well, now I'm already over here, so I might
Yeah.
as well record the intro
It's
and I might as well
weird,
start
the little
editing.
tiny like subconscious things that you can
It's like a little
do
mental play that just
yeah.
nudges you a little bit more in
Like
the
I
right
don't even
direction.
know why, but when I'm in an office setting, I don't even want to watch a movie or like Netflix or anything. Like I want to find something to work on. It's weird.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me, but I mean maybe it's like a rare thing, but that's what has worked for me that I think could work for you too.
Yeah. No, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Your body's like primed to do work. Whereas if you're sitting in bed, it's like, okay, well, we should be asleep. So like I'm not really focused on whatever I'm doing because
Yeah. Yeah.
your body
You're like
knows.
unwinding. You're
Yeah.
like in unwinding subconscious like I'm just going to relax, but then when you're here you're working.
Yeah. It's that little mental, it's like a little, you flip the
Switch,
switch
yeah.
and you're like, okay, now we're going to do something serious.
Yeah.
Or not serious because this is a podcast,
Spend more
but
time in your office.
I need to. If there's a takeaway for me from that, it's that.
You got to research more.
Yeah. Yeah, the algorithm's definitely a big
decide
thing.
cuz I think like that whole like vague vision that you have is from lack of research.
Oh yeah, I definitely have, like, I don't have a map, but I have like a rough, like if I was in pottery right now and I was building a vase,
Mm-hmm.
I've got the lump of clay and I've got the idea of, oh, this could be a vase, but I haven't actually put my hands on it and started manipulating it. Which I think a lot of people, you just get stuck in that. It's like, oh, I've got this idea and it could be something and it's gonna be great, and then you
Then when do
never.
you usually stop with that idea?
With what?
Like, if you've had a goal and then you stop or you don't ever implement it, why? What's the reason why?
What's my reason?
Yeah.
I see everything through. It might take me a while, but I see it through.
Okay.
I haven't set a goal yet that I haven't hit for myself.
Okay.
Mainly because I get obsessed.
Yeah.
So like
That's
I
good.
can't let it go until it's done.
That's good.
Regardless. Sometimes it bites me in the ass because sometimes I get hooked on things that are like, why are you doing that? And it's like, well, I gotta see it through. And then it's like 2 months later, it's like, okay, I finished that. We can go on to the next thing now.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing is, yeah, it's probably that. Because you get obsessed. You gotta get obsessed with the right things. Things that actually build your time, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or make the best of your time.
Yeah. Also, like, I would say don't focus. I made a mistake of like focusing on relationships too much right out of high school.
That's dangerous.
And it's like, oh, it's a big mistake. I mean, like it's hard to speak on this because obviously it didn't work out for me, but it works out for some people, and it ended up being like the best thing that ever happened to them. But yeah, I don't think I'm going to focus on relationships for a long time
Yeah.
from learning from that. But yeah, I mean, that can be something that people get easily obsessed and distracted by, and then it ends up not being the right person.
Or even if it is the right person, there's a lot of time.
Wrong timing.
Well,
right?
yeah, and even if it's good timing, that you have to invest time into a relationship,
Yeah.
and that is time that you're not using for other things.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a relationship with someone you love and you want to see, you're
If
gonna
it's
clock
the-
out on Friday night and you're gonna go watch a movie, or you're gonna go out to dinner, or you're not gonna pick up that extra shift at work.
If it's the right person, you could potentially have it be an investment and an asset to you if it's the right person. Even though they're taking a lot of time from your day, they could also be making you produce more. They could be motivating you. I mean, they could be like doing all those things if it is the right person, but then you have to risk it.
That's
know?
true,
Like,
yeah. And if it's the wrong person,
then it's just a complete
it
waste.
gets really bad. Yeah, because then you're wasting time,
Yeah.
resources, and it's not working out. And you might be miserable while it's happening.
Yeah,
And you're like,
if you get obsessed with it, because I'm kind of like, okay, I'll maybe like put too much, I'll invest too much into it,
mm-hmm.
and then I'll be like, oh well, I invested too much, and then cut at a loss. So that's why, because I just know myself, like I don't really have the whole like control of like, okay, I'm gonna like focus on business first, relationship second. Like usually I just focus on the relationship part first, which I would not recommend. That's why like I think trying not to focus on that is important. Yeah.
It can take a lot of time. Being with the wrong, no, I don't think there are many things out there that will ruin your life more than investing in the wrong person.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it's draining. It weighs on you.
Yeah.
You're not. I mean, if you guys are fighting all the time, that's not good, and you're just miserable.
Yeah.
And then you're not trying to achieve your goals. You're stuck in this loop of we're just miserable.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're absolutely right. It's really too bad. Really too bad. It's risky with people.
Yeah.
Sure. Yep. But there's some people that make it work, so don't lose hope, I guess.
Yes, this isn't a drag on relationships. It's just finding the right person and trusting.
And
like,
especially high school students, like you do not need to fall in love right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can
Like,
all
that's
we
gonna
can all
impact
second.
them at all.
Yeah, that's not going to stop them, but at least we feel better about putting a PSA out about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
don't. Yeah, high school love is tricky. But it works out. That's the crazy thing is it works out for some people, so you can't knock all of it. Because some people get married
Yeah.
not
Right.
in high school, but to their high school sweetheart, and they're happy, and that's a great life. And congratulations. And
Yeah.
some people do that, and they're miserable, and they're
Yeah.
hating life, and they never achieve
it's
what they
just
want.
like a caution thing. Like,
Yeah,
approach it with a lot of more caution than you would think.
yeah. You got to know who you are and what you want out of life.
Yeah.
And find someone who reflects that.
Right. Yeah. That's about all I can think of. Like,
Okay, we just did like 4. We just did like 4 hours.
What time is it?
It's 5 o'clock.
No way.
I know.
What the heck?
Wow. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Do you have anything else on your notes, or did we hit it? We could wrap this.
I think that's 5 hours is not gonna make it for people watching. They're just gonna be like, okay, after like 30 minutes, they're just gonna be like, this is too long.
No, they're gonna hear the information and be like, okay, I'm hooked. I'm in this for the long haul.
You know, it might be better, like for the algorithm, it might be better if you shorten it and release it certain
I do
times
clips.
of the week.
I do clips. That's my thing, because I don't like. I've had people say, "Oh, you should cut it down," like, "Oh, you should edit it down," but I think that that's like disingenuous in a weird way, because I think everything we talked about, even when we're cracking jokes or just talking about relationships, that all adds to the conversation. And even if it's only one person out there who's like, "Man, like I liked
Well,
that."
what you could do is like take it section by section and just do like, okay, this one's 30 minutes, this one's 30 minutes, because what, 30, 30, 30, 30, you got like 12 videos there.
I need to get better.
You got like 10 videos there. If you cut it and then you release it certain times.
I need to get better about clipping, because there are like moments where it's like, oh, I should create a clip of that, but then it's like, I feel bad because sometimes it's like a hot topic, and so like clipping out that hot topic feels disingenuous to the person it's on.
You don't have to erase anything.
It's just
like,
taking that out. It's like, I don't know, is the person gonna see this and be like, why did you clip that part? Like, what? You didn't think the rest of it was gonna? It's like, no, I was just trying to take some highlights for people. I got to get better about that. It's like my own insecurity rubbing off on that. I think I got to move past that. That's like the last barrier I have in the podcast.
You know, like you'll come up as a recommendation to people if you follow the algorithm.
Yeah.
And so I do know that like how consistently you post and how the length of your videos affects that. So if you do like 30-minute video each one,
I'd be more
that
consistent.
might help you get monetized and then make money. And then all like this 5 hours of work might make you like tons of money later on in life. once you
Yeah.
get views.
We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I gotta start chipping away at some things for sure.
Yeah.
That
I mean, like,
SEO and
I can only give out so much information because it takes me so much time to learn all this stuff.
that's why you gotta create some videos and put them up.
That's also why though, like, I can't do this consistently because like I'm just I research outside of work,
Mm-hmm.
so I only have so much time that I can research, and
Yeah.
then I won't speak on something unless I feel sure in it. So it takes a while for me to feel sure in something and then to like be comfortable with giving advice to anybody. So that's why like it's been like a year since we've just spoke because like at least on the podcast because like I was still figuring all of this information out,
Yeah.
going through like tons of videos and stuff.
Which is good. I would rather like that's how we should all view things is, let me do my due diligence. And if I'm not comfortable speaking on something, let me say, I don't know. Like
Yeah.
we can talk about this, but I don't know. So this is coming from a place where I don't have all the knowledge.
Yeah.
Which is 90% of me talking on here is I don't really know, but I'm gonna take a swing at this and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, well I should probably go and get something to eat.
Yes. Okay, Hailey, I really, really I mean I've enjoyed having you on both times. We gotta do this again because
Cool,
it's
yeah.
I get a kick out of talking to you and I feel like it's important. I feel like you need to start a YouTube page or something, or the Queen, Investment Queen. I'm excited to check
Yeah.
that out because
Yeah.
that sounds
It has
cool.
like no followers right now.
It's gonna have
It's
one
more like
after
for
this.
my own like keeping track of myself. And
Mhm.
then maybe like one day if I do end up like becoming really successful, it'll blow up.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And it'll be cool to see that evolution. I think that's
Yeah.
a trip.
I'm still like I said, I'm like at step 2 out of 20. So I don't expect myself to be already like hitting home runs and stuff on like creating content and getting monetization and stuff like that. So yeah. But I hope you do soon. I hope
We'll
that
see.
I
We're
hope-
taking baby steps. I'm on step 1/4, so you're a little ahead of me. I gotta play catch up now. But really, thank you for coming on. I had a freaking blast. I didn't even realize
Oh my god.
like 4 hours just flew by, but it was definitely
I'm
worth
so
it.
sorry.
No,
It
don't
took
be.
so long.
Don't be. I have my work cut out for me now. Now we're gonna see how disciplined I am to get this out quickly. So that'll be a good test.
No rush. But yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you.